they're going to go this way. That
So
way,
then you can't avoid. Okay, we have,
Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion?
yes, we have a few things to take out of order.
I would like to make a motion to take item 6A out of order.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Oh, no else?
Public hearing application for approval of minor engineering change, 1 Arboretum Way, Avalon Bay Communities applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the planning board hereby withdraws this matter without prejudice.
Do we withdraw it, or does the applicant withdraw it?
Says we do.
We were the ones in error for putting it on your agenda versus the Board of Appeals agenda, so it is,
We are
We are withdrawing it from our own agenda.
Yes.
All right, that sounds strange, but I'll accept that. Okay.
They've been informed, and we'll be guiding them through the process.
it's a very we don't do this very often.
Yeah.
With 40B amendments. So.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain, opposed, 500.
501.
I would like to make another motion, Mr. Chairman.
Wasn't right here when it started, so now,
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a motion to take item 7G out of order.
Second.
been moved and seconded to take item 7G out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 600.
And, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the planning board hereby accept the applicant's
I
request
should
to...
announce what it is
Yeah.
first.
Oh,
Continue
sorry.
public hearing. Thank you for moving
Trying
things
to
along.
get things along quickly.
Continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 6.1.2, non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaws, 121 Lexington Street. 121 Lexington Street Realty Trust applicant.
Thank you. I make a motion that the planning board hereby accept the applicant's request to withdraw without prejudice the application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 6.1.2, non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaw requested by the applicant's attorney in a letter dated October 29th, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 600.
Just for clarification, on both of those, it was advertised for section 1.1 for
was-
uses. It's just non-conforming uses, not structures. So just, we should amend the motion. It's advertised correctly, it's just was written in the motion
In
incorrectly.
here, it's wrong. Okay, so that item G that has been withdrawn was for non-conforming uses, not for non-conforming structures, as I incorrectly stated earlier.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay? Citizens' time. Anyone here for something that's not on the agenda except Mr. Sachs, who is on our agenda for citizens' time? Is there anyone else who's here for a matter that is not on the agenda?
Yes, that gentleman.
I have something about 121. I have a short statement I'd like to read.
Okay, 121 has been withdrawn, it's not in front of us.
Okay, so it's not on the agenda.
It's gone away.
It's not on the agenda.
I can't make a statement.
It's not on the agenda.
Citizens' time.
How much time do you want?
4 minutes.
Go.
Poor guy's not gonna have a chance to breathe.
I'll be reading it. Scott O'Riordan, 104 Lexington Street. I'm delighted that the permit has been withdrawn. This is a direct result of the resistance put up by the residents and the letter I sent to the building department. I wanted to bring attention to this, and not just because I put a lot of time and effort to get to this point, but because it's a great teaching moment, not only for me, but the planning board and all the residents of Burlington. This was a project that included demolishing the home of the father of Burlington and erecting a 3-family condominium complex solely because somehow, somewhere, it was grandfathered as non-conforming use. The tragedy of the historical aspect is another discussion, but when I first spoke out against this in the spring, I was met with a fierce rebuttal from some of the members of the board and essentially shut down. I was told that my argument for the removal of the protected status was a moot point and that it was just too late. There was nothing I could do, and sorry, this is just fait accompli. Well, 4 months later, and long story short, the inspector of buildings reviewed my letter, forwarded it to town council, and decided that the protected status had in fact been lost, and maybe even long before this came to you from the previous owner in 2011. Now, I know that there are probably 7 ways to Sunday at getting back at us, so do what makes you happy, but I'm glad that the right thing was done, and I thank John Clancy and town council. In my opinion, the teaching moment for the planning board may be that perhaps you could be more receptive to ideas and suggestions of the residents in the future, because clearly this one was off the mark. The teaching moment for anyone watching BCAT or anywhere online is that keep your eye on projects under review, and if you think something isn't quite right with the way it's going, do your research and present your arguments. Because as I've learned, even if the chairman of the planning board tells you that your point is moot, it just might not be. And finally, the teaching moment for me is that I'm going to take my LSATs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. My response to you
Yes.
is, I take exception to your facts and your tone. The facts are, we have to deal with an applicant that's legitimately in front of us, and the decision as to whether it's legitimately in front of us was entirely a decision of the building inspector. The fact that the building inspector changed his mind is why it was withdrawn. Nothing to do with us. And to say that we rejected you, we allowed you and everyone else to have an ample opportunity to speak.
Thank you for allowing me, but even your tone right now is a little bit combative, and that's...
Well, you betcha my tone is combative,
It
because
is.
your tone was.
Yeah, okay, well...
Your tone accused us of doing something we did not
It seemed like you
do.
intend for it to be, so I'm sorry you took it that way, but I didn't intend for it to be that way.
Well, that's the way I took it.
Okay, well, it's not my problem, sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you for going under 4 minutes. Okay, Mr. Sachs.
Hi, I think I'll stand, I don't know. Is this mic working?
Sure, it's
Doesn't sound
on.
like it is.
I'll sit.
We allow either, John, so whatever you want to do.
You could take that microphone and stand.
There's no real reason to stand. Hi, John Sachs, town meeting member of the Master Plan Steering Committee, and I just wanted to make a brief presentation in favor of this concept of a sculpture park. We would like the cooperation, support, and perhaps even participation of either members of the planning staff and/or the board in this endeavor. This is and you all have handouts, which I'm going to pretty much follow it, starting on the page, Why a Sculpture Park for Burlington. For folks at home, there's a website, which is Art for Burlington, that's ART numeral 4 burlington.org, that explains about this project. Basically, came out of steering committee that, unlike a lot of towns around, we don't have a recognizable, easily recognizable town center like they do in Woburn and Wakefield and so on and so forth. Because of our history, we have a very pleasant town center with a common and a park. But you could drive by and go, yeah, that's nice. But you wouldn't, as somebody recently on the Burlington Residents Facebook page asked where you could buy a postcard of Burlington to send to her friends that she just moved here from Texas and wanted to send a postcard. And she got laughed at because there's no such thing. And I think one of the things that a sculpture park would do would be postcard worthy for Burlington. Let me take this page at a time. We feel like the sculpture park would kind of, when you say Burlington, everybody says, yeah, the mall. That's what we're known for. And we would like to be known for something else. Hopefully, the sculpture park would replace the image of Burlington among Eastern United States residents and say, yeah, that's the cool town with the sculpture park, rather than that's the town with the mall. We think there's some advantages for people looking to recruit people to come and work here, as opposed to places, let's say in Somerville or Cambridge, that have other cultural advantages. They look at the suburbs as not being that interesting, and this would make us more interesting. How would it actually happen? We've been evolving our idea of how this takes place. The latest concept is that we would follow the successful path of the dog park people, who formed an ad hoc committee of the Recreation Department, or commission, actually, I'm not sure which, an ad hoc committee of recreation, let's say. So there's a lot of participation from recreation. In all likelihood, the spaces that we're talking about putting the sculpture park are actually controlled by the rec department anyway, like Simon's Park, maybe some spaces in front of these buildings. In all likelihood, probably not the common, except perhaps on a corner here or there, if the selectmen are in favor of that. This committee gets formed, and the committee formulates a set of requirements for how these sculptures would work. The committee looks into outside funding sources from state and private funding grants. We've already partnered with the New England Sculpture Association, who will work with us to find sculptures that are acceptable in terms of their weather resistance and so forth. And one of the other points I want to throw in at this point is, the particular reason to do this now is that the Nordblom folks have given a $10,000 grant to put a sculpture in front of Lifetime Fitness. In fact, they have a pad ready waiting for the sculpture, and they have the 10 grand, and they want a committee to pick the sculpture. And so what we want to do is form this committee, whose first job is to pick the sculpture over by Lifetime, and then probably also pass muster on any other similar grants that come from Nordblom or other developers, but then go on to form our own municipal sculpture park in this part of town rather than over in that part of town. This idea's been kicking around for a few years. We have made a presentation a couple years ago to the selectmen. Their attitude was, great, go do it, as opposed to, we'll do it. It was kind of like, you go do it. So we've been muddling along with this idea. The third page talks about where the sculpture park would be placed. The ultimate decision would be up to this committee with approval of rec, probably planning, probably DPW. The two general ideas that are land controlled by rec, and that would mean either along the edge of Simon's Park, so as you walk or drive down 3A from town center down toward the commercial town center, on the left, in the open space, not competing with the Frisbee place, and between the forest and, there's a lot of space between the forest and the road, right across from the new Building 19 development. And there'd be a whole trail of sculptures along there. That's one possibility. Another one would be in front of the town buildings, starting way up at Rec and moving all the way down toward the fire department building. There's also a big triangle right in the sort of center of Route 3 that would be an interesting place to put a large sculpture. Had talks with a local sculptor about perhaps putting something there. And then if the selectmen like the idea of one in the corners, very tip corners of the common where it would not interfere with its use as a, for Truck Day or Celebrate Burlington Day, that would always be possible. So it would really be up to the committee. We've got 12 potential names already, and we want a few more, probably, because not everybody's going to be able to do it, not everybody will show up. What will it cost? I put an example here for the town of Olathe, Kansas, which is a little bit bigger than Burlington, but they have $15,000 a year they toss into the sculpture park. I thought, just as an example, discussion number, if Burlington threw $10,000 a year into it, that would be considerably less than we put in the 4th of July, but the sculptures wouldn't disappear in smoke in one night. They would be there every day. The committee would look into grants from outside arts granting agencies of all kinds, and coordinate also with the developers in town, such as Nordblum and the mall and so forth. And then we would work, we have somebody from the school department, a teacher, who wants to be on the committee, and obviously there's a good option there to get student work on display, if the committee feels that it's appropriate. Wanted to just finish up with a couple of thoughts. A major art museum would have a really nice effect, I think, on the town's profile, but it would cost $100 million, and I don't think we've got that much money. We have no place to put it. And the cost of running said museum would be excessive. On the other hand, a sculpture park, there's no staff, there's no plumbing, there's no wiring, there's no employees. It doesn't cost us anything. And in fact, we already have the sculpture park. If you look around, you drive through the center of town, and I, having been playing with this idea for a few years now, every time I drive down, I actually sort of see the sculptures there. I can imagine them there. So in a sense, what I'm saying is we already have the sculpture park. We're just missing the sculptures. That's pretty much it. And as I said, we'd love to have from either the planning staff and/or the board somebody to sit in on these meetings, which we would expect to be roughly monthly to start with and maybe go down to quarterly once we get the ball rolling. And the goal being to figure out where we get the sculptures, where we put the sculptures, which ones are acceptable, and let's go get some money. The other thing I just want to say is that this is not an all-or-nothing project. We can start with 2 and see if people like it, and then we could add 2 more. If there's an entire trail all the way from across from the Shell station all the way down to the center of town, well, that would be nice, but it doesn't have to happen overnight. If it's turning out to be really too successful, we have 15 or 20 sculptures and it gets crowded on a weekend, so we say, all right, let's tone it down. Let's not quite have so many, but at this point, being worried about too successful, I think, is probably the least of our problems. I'm pretty convinced that the management of the new development where Building 19 was would be very positive about this, except that they've just been too busy to really meet with us about it because they've got other issues, other fish to fry right now. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, do you see this as being a permanent sculpture or different sculptures rotating through?
I
A
kind
variety of
of,
some kind.
I kind of see it as permanent, although if one of the models is Skokie, Illinois, where what happens is the country is filled with backyard and basement sculptors who really want their work to be seen. So when Skokie puts out, they give out 4 $2,500 stipends a year, and the winners put their sculpture in a truck and they drive it up to Skokie, and the Skokie people put it in the ground, and it stays for 2 years. So in that sense, it's kind of rotating. I would think that there may be some pieces that would be so popular that people would then want to buy them. In a sense, you could look at it either as a gallery, where things change every few years, and that sometimes, as has happened down at the MFA, they had that big glass thing by Chihuly on display, and they said, if enough people donate, we're going to buy it. And they did, and they bought it, and it's there. I don't like it, but a lot of people like it. So the point being, I could see both. I could see having, like for the high school, you could have a sculpture contest, and maybe that stays up until the next contest, or something like 2 years with the possibility of some permanent ones, something like that.
Interesting you point out Kansas. I was watching something on TV just the past week, and there was some much smaller town in Kansas. They were interviewing someone along a sidewalk in front of some building, and all of a sudden, I see in the background these very modernistic people-type statues that were just there, 3 or 4 of them, and they just catch your eye.
On the Art for Burlington website, I list a number of little towns and cities in America that have sculpture parks. And there's some, like North Dakota and like out-of-the-way places. Now, there's also, downtown St. Paul that has a big, their center of their town is a sculpture park. And those are probably the $50,000 and $150,000 pieces by big-name sculptures. That, I don't think that is either sensible nor required. If you could go to the website for the Skokie folks, they have some very, very nice work that is done essentially by advanced amateurs.
Paul?
It's very interesting. In Burlington, you spoke of recreation, and the recreation has 2 members who are not at large. One is from the recreation, and one is from schools. And I happen to be the one from recreation, and I've been there for 18 years now, so I have a pretty good idea how it works. And just to give you one quick example, a resident who was interested in Wildwood property came to a member of recreation and said, couldn't we get that for a park? And that's how Wildwood got there.
Right.
From that one person like you who was enthusiastic about it, happened to know how to get grants, and there you are. I would just disagree. We have a nice gazebo. We didn't develop like some other towns did with the town center. But I would be proud to send somebody a nice picture of the gazebo and say, this is in a wonderful park that we have in the center of town. So being interested in sculpture, you don't see it that way, but
Well, I
some
just
might.
feel like
But
basically when you drive down 3A, you drive down and you look and you say, that's nice.
I understand that. I
You don't
understand where
say,
you're coming from.
that's really,
Yeah.
you don't really know that you passed through the center of town. You don't,
Right.
it's not a park like the Olmsted Parks where that has,
Never gonna be.
right, and we want to keep it open for uses. But my feeling is that the lower part of Simons Park isn't used by anybody for anything except a little bit of Frisbee. But I'm talking about a usage that would not interfere even with that. It's basically the 20 feet between that little wall and the rest of that big grass area. And I just think it would be a huge, it would be a lot of fun for everybody. I think everybody's going to love it, to tell you the truth.
My suggestion to you would be that you talk to a member of the Recreation Commission, who's also a planning board member, and get on the agenda, because that's how it starts. That happened to some of the people who were interested in the dog park, they came to recreation, and we're very fortunate. In Burlington, we have an outstanding recreation department, and last year, our director was honored as the most outstanding director in the state, and there are 352 towns. So recreation knows how to do it, and if you can get them on board, to me, that would be the place to go.
Actually, we are on the agenda at the Recreation Commission, their next meeting in November, and it was the encouragement of Christine Brown.
Yes, well, I
That
have
actually-
written Christine Brown here, because I knew she was interested also.
Right. But it was her encouragement at steering committee that made
Excellent.
me think that this is actually going to happen, because if the chairman of rec wants to do it, that was a huge boost to the idea. That
He
and-
very well, because he works for us.
Okay. Any other questions?
Not a question, a comment. I love this idea. I'm so glad that you're working on it. I think the locations that you've identified are excellent. It'll also be great for all the people that are waiting in long lines to drop their kids off at the high school. But that's beside the point. And we'll have to discuss it amongst ourselves, but I would love to be a part of your committee.
It's also a great pleasure to be in front of you guys talking in favor of something.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
you.
Sachs.
Couple of questions, Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Yes,
sure.
I wrote some stuff down. So, thank you for your presentation. In your presentation, you talk about Olathe, Kansas largest city with $15,000 annual budget, and that the Burlington spends $10,000 per year on July 4th parade. Who pays for $10,000? Is that public
Herb
funds? or private
Chambers.
funds?
Town does.
I think it's, I think we approve
There are two
it.
different things here. So the town pays the $10,000, or does Herb Chambers pay $10,000?
Every year, the town committee.
Town contributes $10,000,
Town
okay.
meeting
Thank you.
allocates the $10,000. Herb Chambers pays for the fireworks, I
Portion
think.
of it.
Oh, okay, thanks, yep, that's what I was trying to, so the 10,000 you're talking about is the parade itself and not the fire?
We actually, I think it's actually for
fine.
police and fire details, but I know that the town meeting actually votes on that particular budget item, and it's always passed without any argument.
Okay, and maybe to staff this one, on the condition of the lifetime pad for a sculpture, what conditions do we write on that with regard to the approval of the sculpture on that? Is it the planning board approval of the sculpture? Is it
It's a
some
site plan.
I was just going to say
committee
that
that didn't exist?
we were
or-
going to create a committee that was going to vote to choose
It's,
the.
it's a placement of the sculpture, it's an offer of $10,000 toward a sculpture of choosing of this committee, and Nordblom has some oversight.
Let me just step back a bit. How the condition is written up, at the time, was this committee in place?
No.
Is it a real committee? Okay, so let me ask one more time. In the condition that was written up, who has the authority to approve the sculpture at lifetime? How is that?
This future committee.
Yeah.
The
And
approval
that's
is
the
the-
committee
Okay.
Yeah.
that we're
Thank you.
trying to
Thank you.
form
Yeah.
as we go right now.
And my question to everyone, don't we already have a water sculpture in the town common, or did that get torn up?
Water sculpture.
Yeah, there's a water fountain, I
There's a
think.
water fountain,
the
yeah.
Yeah, it's got little
Rotary?
gates on, and it's
Oh,
not
But
a
right,
water.
it's surrounded by trees, you can't see it
Yeah.
unless you go over to where it is.
Yeah, okay. So we already have one, right? But nobody knows it's there because it's camouflaged. Okay, because I've been there and it's very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just know if it was still there, but I haven't been on town common
I
except for
think that was
prom.
Kiwanis or somebody.
My other question here, and maybe to staff and to Ernie, from a master plan standpoint, is there something on there with regard to a sculpture park?
In the master plan
Yeah.
itself?
Yeah,
I know we encourage more cultural uses, but
Okay.
I defer
Yeah,
to.
we encourage public art, to really foster initiatives to, increase visibility of especially local artists and culture that's happening in Burlington, and to just have more types of both historical awareness as well as artistic awareness, and if those two things could be merged as kind of showing the history of Burlington, but in innovative different ways. But also ideas such as a sculpture park were definitely directly discussed as part of the master plan.
but is it written down in the master plan versus discussed, is my question.
Yes, there's,
Okay.
like, in that
I
goal,
think- let
things
me-
such as a
I think
sculpture
a
park is-
specific recommendation for the sculpture park was considered too specific for the master plan. I think it was, the master plan is in favor of public art displays such as a potential sculpture
so
park. It's
that's-
mentioned indirectly.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
And for the folks that walk in Wildwood, you know, kind of, I know you'd probably do that. If you go out the backside, heading that trail towards College out there, has anybody ever done that? Barbara, you've done that?
College Road, no, I've not done it.
You've never done it? Paul, have you ever?
I did it once, yeah.
Do it out there, and what do you see out there, Barbara? I just want
We tell my nephew and niece it's the secret garden.
The
but
secret
there's
garden.
There's a gentleman who builds these, he's built this amazing garden with trains and sculptures and amazing, huge birdhouses that are incredibly complex and beautiful. And they're also, if you go all the way out and turn right, on the other side of his house, he's got even more of them. It's fantastic. So he
So-
might be a great person for you to talk to. I don't know who he is, I just know where his house is.
Have you ever taken that
beautiful.
walk out there?
I should look for that.
So when you go walk around, because I cross-country ski around this, but if you take the right down, kind of heading out towards College, there's a trail there, you'll see where people are coming out with their dogs, and just head out to that trail out to, is it College you end up on? Is it College Road?
I'm
Or
pretty sure
I
it's
don't know if it's
College Park.
college,
Craig's,
it's,
You might be the one before
I
that.
think it's something before that, but it's the only little trail that leads out there
Take a walk out
to the
there,
back of the park, and it's
check it
it's
out.
lovely.
get some ideas and, I thought that as you were talking about the museum in Burlington, you know, would be a great place, would be the Kent Cottage would be an excellent place for a museum if it ever came about and somebody had some ideas there, as standalone.
It's all gone.
Is it gone? They tore it down? I was just.
Kent Cottage?
Yeah.
Well, that came before us. That-
No, just in
Yeah,
general,
nothing
for
ever
a
happened.
spot.
It's still there.
They were
The
able to
structure's
complete it,
still
they
there.
couldn't get the money to do it.
Yeah,
So it never, the project failed?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it sort of, but the building is still there.
Yeah.
No, I've seen the building. I've been
So
waiting
if we-
for them
this
to
gets
build
off the
it.
ground,
Yeah,
and then
no,
you say
they-
we
they
have
couldn't raise the funds
a
necessary
museum
to
for
preserve
the,
it.
for sculptures, that might be a good
So
spot
they
for it.
didn't go forward with the whole approved project.
Another question I had with regard to your comments, that it be an ad hoc committee for the rec commission, would that limit, because it's the rec commission, the sculptures would have to be on recreation-controlled property?
No,
So the rec commission has power to put it anywhere in town?
They could ask and get
No.
permission.
no.
So maybe,
The selectmen control most of the property, really,
yeah,
and schools,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Maybe be an
Work
ad
with
hoc
her.
commission of the selectmen, or maybe the planning board, or maybe, I'm not sure that recreation's the right place for it to be under, right?
We don't need it, because we have a lot to do.
Right, I'm just kind of throwing
But
that out
I'm
there.
just saying
I'm
to
not sure
John,
that
if you
that's
want to
the-
get something
It
done,
could- It could
that's
be
how
a
you- that's how to
cultural,
do it.
cultural arts council or something that does possibly this as well as other
Yeah.
ventures.
Well, I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're modeling it after the effort and working with rec directly because of their affiliation with Simons Park.
It says ad hoc committee of the
that-
recreation commission
Yes.
is formed and outlines a
Oh,
plan
okay.
for town.
Yeah,
I apologize.
in parallel with how the dog park, because Simon's Park is under the control of rec, and so is the land that, outside here that is not the common.
Oh, the Grandview to the left.
I mean, the idea has come up, in addition to sculpture over by Lifetime Fitness, couldn't these sculptures be distributed all over town? And certainly they could. That would really be up to this committee to decide. I guess the original vision was that if we put a bunch of them downtown, by massing them all together, we would have more of an impact than if they were spread all over town. Plus which, it wasn't clear that people really wanted strangers in their neighborhood looking at sculptures, whereas strangers in downtown looking at sculptures within the view of the police station would probably be more acceptable. So that's why the distributed idea. And the one in front of Lifetime Fitness almost certainly is not going to be seen on foot. I mean, because nobody walks up Middlesex Turnpike. The Lifetime Fitness is almost 100 yards recessed behind the road. So it's really going to be a sculpture. And in fact, I sent New England Sculpture Association an initial set of requirements for that sculpture. And it said, it's probably got to be something you can appreciate from a car, because I don't see anybody walking up to it. Whereas the ones here in town, they would all be sculptures you could walk up to, and you might be able to deal with them like the Red Auerbach sculpture that you can sit in, or the ducklings that you can put your children on.
Okay.
Be good to start with one.
So,
Could certainly start with one.
yeah, another question I had was, in particular to Lifetime Fitness, how did that come about, John? Did you approach the developers on that? Or, I mean, normally developers don't, like, kind of give away land for town activity, so were you,
That came from the planning board.
that came from
Well-
us to put there, so.
Yeah.
Planning board,
Must, from, I think some of us that were on master plan
Okay.
asked for it.
So
And-
may-
And I believe their counsel was Bob Buckley, who also is a strong
So-
And also
believer
on the
in this.
master plan committee.
So maybe what we do is on new developments in the future, if we, instead of it being a one-time for Lifetime Fitness, we kind of put that
Encourage them
into,
to-
encourage into
Right.
other developers and larger sites that come before us. So, and it could be in, in business parks as well, right? Because I know that they want to kind of have the mixed use and have the walkability, and if the reason to walk would be to go to a sculpture.
Yeah, be
By the
careful
way,
with
I
that
talked
one, because
to,
they may
uh,
have a different definition of art.
Well, so no, again, it would be under the control of
Of the committee.
a committee from somewhere that has, yeah,
And they just
it wouldn't be
do like
some.
a pad, like,
Right, because then they could have a giant
Right.
molecular thing to be, and then it becomes a sign, right?
Right.
Yeah, you know, that's what they would do.
Yeah, the other thing was the kind of the town center, if you put in the town center, the only comment I would have there is that it might conflict with the giant highway sign there, so maybe there's the big highway sign that maybe even said early voting and things like that. So we may want to try to, instead of having the conflict there of sculpture and then highway sign, maybe to fix that, conditionally and work something on that, because that just doesn't jive with, I think, what you're talking about, John, is having a walkable town center with sculptures, and then you've got the highway sign
Where's the
Right across
highway
the street.
sign?
Talking about,
That's
right in
that
the
thing
corner
on
of Bedford
wheels.
Street and Cambridge Street, where it told you to do early voting.
The
Right across from
portable
Shell.
LED
Portable-
sign.
There is one? I'll go take a
Portable,
look.
it's on wheels.
It's
got
portable.
electronic,
It's been there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just as another comment, the high school actually did have an outdoor sculpture for the folks that were at the high school many years ago. And it was nice, it was a beautiful, famous sculpture, and it was outside, and when you walked into school, and now it's indoors.
it was down by the front door, right?
Down
Yeah.
down by the
It's
front,
inside
now
the
it's
building.
now
Yeah,
it got moved into
inside.
the guy.
the high school. So it kind of is in conflict with what we're saying, hey, let's get the sculptures out for people to see. The
was
only
it-
way you see that one is if you can get through the buzz in the door into the security and go down and
But wasn't there some vandalism when it was outside?
Yeah.
I
it
don't know
got
why.
painted.
So that's a great point. So maybe we think of that with regard to John's ideas about outdoor sculptures and vandalism. So we took our one beautiful sculpture that we had outside in the high school, got vandalized and threw it inside. So, that's just things to consider, John.
Vandalism is definitely a concern, and I think we'd have to have an agreement with the sculptors that we're only responsible to some extent. But it's also true that the high school is very heavily populated by kids of a certain age who are like me at that age and had a tendency to spray paint everything in sight, whereas town center
Yours
is...
was artistic.
Well, I hope. But also, I think town center is
It's more
at least
visible.
part of it is very much under the eye of the police.
It's very visible, whereas at the high school, when school is not in session, it's very private.
Right.
You could
Putting
go
a
in
Red
there and
Sox shirt
spray
on a
paint the rocks
statue is
and
not
nobody can see you.
I mean, the only problem I could see with that is the area you're talking about where the pines are in that area, somebody could shoot out of the pines, then run back in, might be an area that they would.
Yeah, I think we have to see what happens. As people have said, we start slow,
Yeah.
and really, don't forget that the ducklings in the Boston Public Garden, about every 7 years, a fraternity group gets drunk and saws one of them off. And it's a problem. They have a few extras, and usually the fraternity starts to feel bad, and they return it, and it gets welded back on. So, I mean, some degree of vandalism we may have to deal with. But I think part of our requirements is that it's a sculpture that, if it does get, that you can't walk up to it and bend it and break it. And if you do spray paint it, we can either just paint it back or remove the paint and keep going.
Or leave it.
Because I think vandalism is clearly among the top concerns.
Yeah. I think just on that subject, because we do have public art, I just saw recently, as you go under 95, 128 and Wynn Street, all the graffiti on the wall there, and that's fairly new. We hadn't seen graffiti in town, not since I've been around, right? But that's something new with regard to the public art.
If you get off 93, off Mystic Ave, and head down, going in towards Cambridge, there's walls that
Oh, yeah,
have been painted quite nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
some
talking,
of them
I'm
have.
talking just wall graffiti under that thing. So who's responsible for the maintenance of
State.
the DOT of the state with the graffiti that's under there?
They own the infrastructure there, so I would assume.
So how does Burlington kind of say, can you do something about the graffiti on that?
File a report with DOT, just like, I think it's the same process as if you have a traffic light on the fritz or
Okay.
something.
Would it be, instead of me doing it, maybe I'm the only guy that has a problem with the graffiti under, on Wynn Street, but if the town did that, would that be give more weight?
I would bring it to the attention of DPW or the selectmen.
Okay, thank you.
There's a place in Princeton called Graffiti Bridge. And I thought they were kidding. They said, well, you go down to Graffiti Bridge. I said, what's that? Well, when you were down there, you knew what it was.
We got one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All righty.
Perhaps,
Now, the 10 minutes was for him, not for each one of us.
no, just one, I think perhaps you can think about including Shawshene students.
Good point.
I mean, I'm sure, because some of Shawshene students are Burlington students, and
Right.
I'm sure you'll find a lot of talent there as well.
Yeah, and when it comes to building large indestructible sculptures, I think a technical Volk school is a good place to start.
Exactly.
They know how to weld.
They've got welding.
No.
Right.
One quick point, if I could.
Sure.
Just one quick point, John. I wouldn't preclude the rest of the commercial businesses further down into the town center.
No, right.
Because if I was a business owner, I might want to say to my customers, we're in the plaza with the giant Tyrannosaurus or whatever the heck is there,
Yeah.
you know? So instead of actually worrying about putting a sign there, they could be identified by some kind of a sculpture.
You know, two things I want to mention. Somebody from Nordblum was heard to say that when he's putting together, you know, a $10 million deal for a building development, 10 grand for sculptures, nothing. He can get it every time. The other thing I mentioned is that I was questioning whether if you bought a sculpture for Lifetime Fitness or down by the mall or wherever, could it be bolted in with 4 bolts and then we borrow it, move it up, and things get moved around? The first sculptor I talked to said, doesn't really like the idea of having sculptures be moved around. But we're going to have the New England Sculpture Association president, who I've met with, come to our meetings and can comment on whether sculptures could be moved around town or not. I really don't know the answer to that. It makes sense to me, but I'm not either a sculpture installer nor a sculptor.
Will you publicly post your meetings so that
Oh, sure.
other people who are interested?
Absolutely, yeah.
Anything further?
No, just thank you for the trails in Mary Cummings. There's been a lot of work being done down there, so I'm sure you're involved with it.
Well, the trustees are starting to,
Is that what it is?
the trustees have put in new bog bridges. And even though they haven't completed their deal with the city of Boston, they're already kind of doing certain things in regard to taking care of the park, such as putting in bridges. And when somebody from Quail Run said that a tree fell from the park into their land, the city said, go talk to the trustees.
Good.
The trustees said it wasn't on our land in the first place. So they're moving towards getting involved.
The trustees had a fundraising target. Have they reached that?
We believe that they're approaching, if they get a state grant, we're going to hit the first $1 million, which is probably enough for them to say, okay, let's do it.
That'd be good.
It would be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, sir.
Announcements.
Yeah, you can.
Notes on it?
Announcements. A reminder, I know we all saw a lot of early voting going on this evening as we came in to Town Hall. Early voting is on through November 2nd, so on through tomorrow.
How late tomorrow? Town hall normally closes at 12:30.
I believe,
1 o'clock is
1
what the
o'clock.
Is
that's
it?
what the highway sign said.
okay.
And interesting to note, I asked Amy, she said so far 3,700 people have early
Really?
voted.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
It wasn't a
We could do
normal
that with a
election.
town election.
Yeah,
So that's encouraging.
definitely. Also, Election Day is November 6th from 7 to 8 at the Burlington High School. And lastly, Veterans Day, Veterans Day, usually the 11th, but that's a Sunday, is observed on November 12th, and all offices will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. I'm sure the Veterans agent will have a schedule of
You
events
usually
for
have
the day.
something on the town common.
It's not going to be the town common this year, I don't think. I was in touch with them because we're going to ring the bell at the church and so forth at 11/11/11, because that's exactly 100 years since when the armistice was signed. And I think their high school, he said he wasn't interested because he said, we're doing our ceremony at the high school on the 9th,
Oh.
on Friday. And give Tuscan Kitchen a wonderful, every veteran gets an invitation to go, and I mean, it's just, they put on a wonderful meal. And they do it for all the veterans in Burlington, and I understand they're doing it in Bedford now, and all you have to do is respond. There was also, I got a card that they are gonna have a ceremony on Sunday, which is 11/11/11, And it's going to be at the flagpole, and there's something for they have something there that's involved with the veterans. I don't know what it is, because I haven't been down there. But we're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna ring the bell and so forth.
Anything further?
Yeah, that was,
Third or whatever.
it was, the armistice was declared on the 11th day, 11th hour of the 11th
Right,
day
right,
of the
right.
11th month,
Right.
yeah.
Very good.
So that was, and before it was Veterans Day, it was Armistice Day.
Right.
And everybody went down for coffee at the 7-Eleven.
It could be. No, but that was known. And I went to get some poppies for a ceremony we're having, and you can't get poppies. But the woman started reciting the poem that they had to stay in school about in Flanders Field,
Yeah.
the poppies grow
That Joyce
between
Kilmer?
the headstones row and row.
It's Joyce Kilmer's poem, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure, I think it was a British, or it could have been.
Okay.
At any rate,
All righty.
Okay.
We all done announcements?
Yep.
Okay, legal notice of interest or non-approvals. We have a non-approval here. Application for endorsement of a plan believed not to require approval, 5 and 7 Ridgewood Lane, Brian Gallinow, applicant.
Yep. Good
Are you
evening.
Brian?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Thank you. So essentially, me and my wife are building an addition onto our house. And we wanted to put a 26-foot garage next to the house. After doing the plot plan, we realized that we were about 8 inches short of the 15-foot setback.
Can you pull that mic just a teeny bit closer,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
So I have a really great neighbor. We get along well. And we planned this line change out where we moved the point behind the house over 3 feet to give us just enough, about 5 inches of space beyond the 15-foot setback so that we could fit the garage in. And then I gave him back a piece of land on his side that cut into his yard, because it was a really 90-degree angle line. So we tried to smooth it out as much as we could without going under the 20,000 square feet.
So you both end up with the same size lot as you had before,
Yeah, he's gaining about, I think, 80 square feet out of the deal, but
but nobody's going below 20,000.
nope,
but you're getting what you want.
exactly.
Sounds like a deal.
Good.
Staff?
We don't have any concerns.
We like it when neighbors get along.
Yeah.
Me too.
All righty. Anyone in the audience need to speak on this? It's not a public hearing, but we'll certainly listen to you if you want to.
You also-
Hearing none? I'm all set, yep. We have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Unless
I'd
anyone
like,
has questions? None? Motion, please.
I would like to make a motion to approve and sign an approval not required plan entitled Subdivision Plan of Land 5 and 7 Ridgewood Lane, Burlington, Massachusetts, prepared by Edward Farrell, Professional Land Surveyor, dated October 3rd, 2018, reflecting the realignment of the lot line between the properties at 5 and 7 Ridgewood Lane. The planning board finds that this is a proper submission of an approval not required plan. The applicant shall submit 4 copies and an electric PDF of the endorsed approval not required plan to the planning board office within 4 weeks of the be provided to the planning department upon completion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 700.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Good luck with your addition.
Thank you so much.
Matters for appointment. Public hearing. That's administrative matters, none.
Administrative.
Skip right over that. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 3.6, Fast Order Food Establishments of 90 Middlesex Turnpike PDD, or Plan Development District. Beyond Chabori Mamoon LLC applicant. And all apologies for murdering all 3 forms of that name.
You can all come up if you want.
This was the former,
Noodles.
Noodles and more.
Noodles and more or something like that.
Thank you, Chairman and the board members. So my name is Parvez Bhuyan. I am one of the partner who are actually, we are bringing Burgerim. It's a franchisee from West Coast, and it is very popular there. And in the East Coast, we have few open already in Connecticut, and New York, they are opening very soon. Virginia, I visited Virginia location. They are really good. I visited California location also. So
This is a franchise.
franchisee.
Okay.
Its name is Burgerim, and they actually make 3-ounce burgers, and it has different option. Like one of the option is, say, you can have lamb patty on the burger. You can have falafel as one of the option. You can have salmon as one of the option. You can, like, you have vegetarian option, you have vegan option, and you have halal option for the Muslims. So various opportunities, so for various diversity of the population Burlington has. And we have lots of employees here also, 13K, I believe, the number or more. So like, it's a great opportunity for our business, also an addition to Burlington. That's what I would say.
Now, you yourself have some of these franchises elsewhere?
No, not yet. We are planning to open one in Marlboro, but it would be the second one. This is the
this
first
is
one
your
we are
first one.
bringing to Massachusetts, actually. And
Okay.
we don't have any Burgerim in Massachusetts so far. This would be the first one.
Staff?
It's being proposed in the former Noodles tenant space in that 90 Middlesex Turnpike Plaza. It's that last tenant space all the way on the left. The seat count is very similar to what was previous approved. the
Any
Noodle.
increase of seats or decrease of seats?
I think it's a de minimis if there's a difference.
There's a decrease because this proposal doesn't
Right.
have any patio seats. The interior
So the
seats are
net,
the same.
I think it has a net
Increase the
decrease.
interior and eliminate the outside ones?
No, they have the number of the interior seats.
Remains the
So there's
same.
a decrease overall since the patio is being
Okay.
eliminated.
All right.
So slight seasonal decrease, yes.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward,
Okay,
but
do we have
yeah.
department reports?
DPW is favorable with conditions, but it looks like they're all regular boilerplate.
Josh, did you review the DPW conditions? Anything unusual?
No, I think all the comments should be general. The
Yeah.
Board of Health is, they're going to be geared towards a food. They're pretty standard for the food use that's being proposed.
Yeah, and there's one about outdoor seating, but you're not having any outdoor seating, right?
No.
Okay, then that one doesn't matter. So otherwise, they're all they're
Okay.
boilerplate.
All righty, Ernie, you have any questions?
Just one. I know you're replacing Noodles and More, and I don't think they did much grill frying. I assume the burgers would be fried on a grill or cooked on a grill. And because of that, there might be, has the Board of Health talked to you about hoods and odor control at
Yeah,
all?
so we got the checklist from Board of Health, and we are working on that. So we did the survey already, asbestos survey, lead paint survey, and few other listed in the checklist, and our surveyor did not find anything. So that report is not yet like officially given to us. That's why it is not submitted to the board yet, but we have not found anything so far.
So you've been through the Board of Health, you've completed there, you're just waiting for their report.
Right, yeah.
To that point too, the site itself, when it was constructed, assumed a certain number of restaurants, so the grease traps have been put in the ground already.
Yep.
There is, yeah,
And then second, the original permit for the site included odor control device. Noodles included odor control device.
Okay, it
And
wasn't
this
odor.
permit will include odor controlling devices. So both of those issues of different food types have been covered.
They're already included in there.
They are, in terms of grease trap, definitely. And odor control, I'm not sure if they need a different one for this, but odor control is required under this permit.
All set. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just had a question here with regard to the landscaping. There's a white cedar post fence that's going to be put somewhere. Can you describe where that will be put? That's at the bottom of sheet 6.
Is that for the entire locus, or is that for,
Yeah, so
This
that's kind of my
particular-
question. 8 feet in length, so probably just this, in front of this building. Page 6.
That's the one that's already there for the,
Yeah, I don't know if it's there or not.
Noodles and
No,
noodles.
Ernie, you're looking to see if it's there now? You're looking to see if it's there now?
Yeah, trying to anyways.
Page 6,
C6.
next to the bike rack.
We have
You have a different plan?
Maybe I got the wrong one.
No, C6, sheet.
Sheet 6.
We don't have that plan
Sheet
set.
6. Don't have it?
We had a different one. We have a different.
What's the date on that plan? Is that the most current one?
Yeah. Elevations.
Are you talking about the rail fence?
Yes.
That is. You can continue, I'll find it.
This is dated August 17th, 2012,
Yeah.
what we're looking at.
These are, we just have, I gave all the site plans to the board, so
Okay.
we just have
Keep that one,
elevations to look at, so that's why we're.
The one I'm looking at is, it's stamped in September 19th, 2018, but the date is August 17th, 2012.
Yeah, so
That's
they
the
were just
latest-
using,
that's the
you're probably
latest
just
plan.
using the
This is
site.
a building site plan, so John, he is actually representing the landlord.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
the property manager.
Oh, good, so,
Can you pull them?
so could
Take
you,
one of my phones, please.
Sorry, John Tardif, property manager. The site plan that was provided was, I believe, the original
Right.
site plan for the building.
Right.
And when they're not proposing any exterior work.
Which is
as
why,
part of this
okay.
project.
right.
So, Mr. Gaffey asked about a fence that's
There's a white
on,
Cedar fence that's
C6.
proposed
It's
in the
on
plan.
the islands in the back.
are you familiar with
Like right here.
that plan?
It,
There.
it's probably existing, which is why the confusion.
Is there a fence down there near the property?
I've got a couple properties, but
Okay. Okay.
I think there might be one towards the back of the building.
There, and it should be,
Doesn't look like it's there, but, okay.
and there's, let's see, is that it? No, that's a wood guardrail, that's
Okay.
correct. Anyway, if there's part of the endorsed plan, it should be there. This isn't the endorsed plan, so I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. So the question's still up in the air on the fence,
Okay, well, we can,
but it should be there.
Well, if it's on the
If it's on the
signed
endorsed
plan.
plan, that's not the endorsed plan.
That is not,
so
okay.
I just want to check it before I say absolutely, absolutely.
right.
All set, Bill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Carol?
I don't have any questions.
Oh,
I never got down to noodles, so I'm trying to picture the area. Is this considered fast food? In other words, people come in, pick it up, take it out to eat? Or
Yeah.
is there seating?
Yeah, so there will be both options. So it will have the seating option and also take out. So it's a fast food which you can take out, but will not have any drive-through, no drive-through. You can order online also.
Will you be doing deliveries?
Sorry?
Excuse me, will you be doing deliveries? In other words, can people call up and
Yeah.
say, and I'm thinking of this as similar to something like Panera.
Yeah.
Where you can eat in,
Very-
you
very
can
close.
call, you can pick up, or, get the food any way that you want to.
I would say like we will be matching very close to Panera. So the way they operate, our operation will be very similar.
So where will, I see that there's parking down the side. Is there enough parking in front from the manager to
Yeah.
accommodate this? Because we have a significant Indian population now.
Correct.
I was told, I thought it was about 8%, I was told now it's 15%. So there's a potential for a lot of business.
Yep.
And a lot of these people are working in engineering jobs in that area. So I'm thinking, you know, at noontime, it may be pretty busy down there. And is there sufficient parking down there to handle an operation? Well, we'll find out. I hope you're successful enough so it's a problem.
So, yeah, I believe we are okay there. Our architect actually checked that, but yeah, definitely we can check again if
Yeah,
there is a
well,
comment.
the staff probably is more a question to them.
I mean, we're comfortable with a proposal from a parking standpoint.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
I have no questions.
Oh, I'm good.
My questions have been addressed.
Like a
Anything
motion.
further, staff? Okay, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
But before that, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience want to speak or comment on this? None, okay, now we can close the
I'd like
public
to make a
hearing.
motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700, Noel.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of, I'm going
Go for it.
Mr.
to,
Mahmood?
Yuan Chowdhury Mamoon LLC for a special permit pursuant to Section 3.6 fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws to permit a burgerism fast
Burger
order-
Rim? How-
You're I am.
I am.
Burger I am.
Burger
Oh.
Rim.
I am.
Burger I Am, fast order food restaurant located at 90 Middlesex Turnpike, Middlesex Marketplace, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached.
Second.
And those are consistent with what was back at the original approval?
Yeah.
Okay. It includes the bit about the odor control and grease traps and all that. Okay.
And lighting and temporary signs.
And lighting and temporary signs, of course.
Snow plowing.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I already seconded it.
It's second, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 700.
Welcome.
Good luck.
Luck.
much.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7B and 7C together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. Public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to Section 4.3.1.14, towers, antenna, windmills, and similar structures, wireless communication facilities which are subject to Section 8.4.0 shall be permitted in the Wireless Communications Overlay District in accordance with the map depicting this districts and the provisions of Section 1.0 of the zoning bylaw, of the zoning bylaws. 72 Center Street is the locus. Empire Telecom USA is the applicant. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's Michael Dolan. I'm from the law firm of Brown Rudnick here on behalf of AT&T. My client, as you may know, has an existing.
Correct, you're saying AT&T, but the applicant is Empire Telecom.
Correct. Empire is the site acquisition consultant for AT&T,
Okay.
and I'm here on behalf of both of them. So my client operates a wireless network throughout the country, including here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There's an existing water tank at this subject property. My client installed a wireless antenna facility at this property in 2001. Due to tremendous consumer demand for more data capacity, faster speeds, and the like, we are upgrading this site and many others across the country. And as part of this effort, and I want to distinguish at the outset that this is not a small cell facility, which you may be wrestling with, as most cities and towns are.
We're not at the moment, they withdrew.
Okay.
We're still wrestling with the topic.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we have there is what's known as a macro site, which is the large antennas, which traditionally establish the backbone and the strong signal, if you will, for the entire system. You know, in Burlington, there may be 4 or 5 of those type sites. The small cells are the ones that kind of target little areas, go on top of a utility pole. So I just want to separate that. But what we're proposing to do here to upgrade this facility is we're seeking to add 3 antennas to the existing 9 antennas we have on the water tank. We're also looking to add 6 remote radio heads. We already have a few on the water tank right now. Those are very small objects, the size of maybe a small briefcase, which up at 99 feet looks very small. And we're also adding 3 what are known as surge arresters, almost like a surge protector at home that you might have to prevent any electrical current that could be disruptive or damaging to the facility. So previous.
How many radio heads did you say?
Excuse me?
How many radio heads did you say?
Radio heads, 6, and surge arresters, 3. The original approval, we received a special permit. There was a condition in that approval that required either the town, who is the owner of the water tank, or AT&T to come back and get the special permit renewed within 5 years. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so as part of our application here tonight, we're seeking to renew that special permit. There were 3 conditions in that special permit approval that we're also seeking to modify. One is very elemental. The special permit approval related to a set of plans from back at the original time, and obviously what we're proposing tonight is slightly different than that with the additional equipment. So that specific reference to those plans in that condition, we would ask that that be updated to this current set of plans. That would have been condition A in the decision.
You're
There was a-
providing the plans for us to approve. You're not asking us to draw the plans, are you?
Excuse me?
You're providing us with the plans
That's
that you want
correct.
updated to. We're not
plans that are-
responsible.
The plans that are part of this application, yes.
Okay.
And then there's a condition C in the decision, which talks about the parameters of the antennas that can be attached to the water tank. At that time, the technology was such that a 12-inch width antenna was suffice. The standard now is larger, and what we're proposing is a 20-inch width antenna. And we would similarly ask that the restriction of a 12-inch diameter antenna be changed to a 20-inch diameter antenna to be more current with current
Are the
technology.
12-inch ones obsolete?
What we're trying to do, you could use a 12-inch to provide certain types of technology, so I wouldn't say that they're obsolete. It's just that to be able to do the supplemental technological things we want to do now, we need this size antenna. So we kind of need both, but we can't live with
So you're
just
not
the
looking
12s.
to get rid of the old 12-inch
Correct.
ones?
Correct. So what, the 9 antennas we currently have are all staying there. We're just adding 3 new ones of this new size.
Okay.
And the last item that we were seeking to perhaps modify was the condition in section S that speaks to the 5-year renewal of the special permit. And perhaps we could, I'm not sure if that's practice here anymore to include 5-year renewals in all your special permits, but we would
That was the intention. We have new software which is going to have reminders, so chances are that that software will be fully in place, and in 5 years, you will be, or your client will be asked to do the renewal.
Okay,
So we're not looking to make that 5 years go away.
okay.
I think part of the reason is we like these type things to come to us every now and then. In case something is obsolete, we want to get you to take the obsolete stuff down. But as long as it's active and in use, fine.
Okay. So with that, just in conclusion, that's the scope of what we're doing. You know, I'll bet if you drove by the facility now and drove by it the day after we were to make our improvements, you probably wouldn't even notice anything changed.
But those are at home watching on TV, and we will all know that.
Now we will, yes. That's right.
Well, you're saying you're adding 3, and you're also adding 3 or 5 boxes to it, and then you're gonna add
6.
6 boxes, and then you're gonna add,
Research protectors.
you're gonna, the antennas that are there are gonna be bigger antennas,
That's correct.
and you won't notice that?
Well, maybe they can do a rendition of what it looks like
Yeah.
today and what it's going to look like.
They're going to be painted to match the water tank. My point being, obviously, you could see a difference if you were looking for it. My point being that if someone weren't aware that we were making a change, it's quite unlikely you wouldn't pick up on it.
That's a pretty busy tower.
It looks like a zoo.
nice little
It looks like a
moneymaker.
zoo as it is. It's
Yeah,
unfortunately
nice little
in the center of
moneymaker for the town,
Oh, it's a
too.
shame, I think, you know what I mean? It looked like a water tower before, now it looks like a
Looks like an
spectacle.
antenna.
Yeah.
Better than putting up a bunch of poles.
Are you responsible for the lightning arrestor on there, or is that the town's responsibility?
Excuse me?
Lightning arrestor, do you have that? Is that what you do as a town, do that?
The.
That's a high point.
Yeah, the high point is, I believe that's the town's responsibility.
Is there a lightning arrestor on there? I assume there is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I know it's come up in conversation with building department and DPW, and there are some conditions that they had to go to the Board of Selectmen before they came here.
Yeah.
And there was some conditions of maintenance that included certain things
Yeah.
like that, as well as the ladder that goes up, that they needed to do prior to the issuance of the building
It's right here.
There are some
And
repairs
that's an
and
excellent, that's an
corrections and
excellent
additions.
point. That's an excellent point, and I should have mentioned that. We
I don't
did
have to
conduct a survey.
Hang on, folks. The microphones have been made a little more sensitive, so if there's side conversations going on, the people at home can't hear.
Jack,
Prim-
I have reports from town, from the
Okay,
departments that you might
he's
want
going to address a point.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Certain
as-
repairs that have to be
as
made
part of
before you
this
can do it.
effort, we did a survey of the water tank as far as things that might need to be upgraded associated with what we're bringing onto the water tank, and we shared that report with the town, and the, the building department gave us their feedback, and they said that as to, I won't get into the specific items because they're referenced by letter and number in the list of things we would do, but they asked that, as to some of them, that we coordinate with the DPW first before we do anything, and likewise with the building inspector of wires as to some of the others. So they're in full agreement with what we're proposing to do. They just want to make sure that they have a seat at the table at the beginning to coordinate and make sure that what we're doing is acceptable to them.
Staff, you have copies of those reports, and
Yeah.
you've incorporated them into the decision.
Yes.
We've incorporated them into the decision, and we also had a checkoff of DPW engineering to ensure that the structural
And you've spoken with-
repairs have been made and everything is good to go before they get a
Before they
building
get the permit to go.
Do you want me to read that into the
Yes,
record or
please.
not? Okay. So this is from the building department. Our office has no objection to the approval of the special permit request pending the following. 1, require repairs and maintenance be made as detailed in the report from Infinigy dated July 10th, 2018, titled Maintenance and Condition Assessment, Burlington Center, 110-foot water tank. Specifically, items noted as A.4, B.2, D.1, and D.3. Items B2 and D3 should not commence until full review and approval is given by the Town of Burlington Department of Public Works Superintendent. Items D1 and D3 should not commence until full review and approval of the Town of Burlington Inspector of Wires. Then there are some other reports
So
as
let's
well.
have them all,
Yes.
or any that are appropriate.
From the Department of Public Works, I have reviewed the above application and offer the following comments. Based on the submission of the July 17, 2018 water tank analysis, 3 additional panel antennas and 6 new remote radio units onto an existing water tank, engineering DPW has no comment. If there is a change in the number of antennas proposed, another water tank analysis must be conducted. And then lastly, from the police department, The police department would like to ensure with the applicant that vehicles associated with work done at the site be parked on the property and not on the sidewalks or on Center Street. If this is necessary, they should contact the traffic division.
Thank you. You're aware of all that?
Yes.
Okay. Some of these things are going to be on the ground.
None of the antennas will. To the extent there's some minor equipment changes on the ground, those will be inside the existing equipment building. We have one room in it. So that's,
You're not enlarging the equipment building
no.
at all?
No,
Okay,
no,
And
no.
that has a
Nothing-
generator in it or anything like
Nothing on the
that?
ground will look any different.
Does that get generators in it that back up power or?
There's backup power, yeah.
Okay. And that's not going to change? You got
No.
sufficient backup power with what
Nope.
you got? All righty. Anything further, staff?
No, we have spent some time with this application. Josh and Liz just had a conference call this morning, and I'll ask Josh to weigh in. But to the point of some of the conditions that are in place, were in place before, are going to continue to be in place is the water tower, other than what we talked about, for structural and other repair. But they do need to paint everything that's on the water tower, the color of the water tower, and maintain that. A comment that came from the police department that we'd include in this permit as well is that any maintenance and work, that no one park on the roadway. I guess they've had some problems with people parking on the roadway, and so make sure that they park off on the property.
There is sort of a little driveway up there, as I recall.
Yeah, there's a little driveway, and there's a bench up there still, I think.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think Larry Rittenberg and I were the only ones who've ever sat on it.
And that was a long
Our
time
tower had
ago.
its first wireless carrier. What else? Other than that, yeah, we made sure it wasn't, or not made sure it wasn't, but talked about small cell. What you might want to ask if you're interested, just because we can't explain it as well as I'm sure the attorney can, is just kind of the need for some of this, this additional equipment. And the age of the equipment that's up there, they're not just switching out the equipment, this is added new equipment, and kind of just in general, the evolution of the service needs of AT&T, that might be interesting to you. And then Josh, did you find out anything this morning that you want to add?
Pretty much everything that we discussed today has been brought up, but one of the points was just, I think the attorney brought it up, was just to making sure that the equipment was painted the same color as water tower to try and, not make it as, physically apparent as possible, so.
Oh, and one more thing. Just in terms of the plan sets and revision, we've dealt with all of that in the decision, so it might seem complicated, but it makes sure, it ensures that the new plan includes everything we'd need to make this the new site plan moving forward.
This is not requiring any waivers of any kind?
No, not with the conditions in place.
Okay.
So at this
Joe?
point, we're comfortable.
So I would like to see if this is gonna happen, I would like to see any equipment that could be put on, I think, be put on the backside, so you can't see it from the street when you're driving by. If it can be put onto the backside of the water tower, I'd like to see that. And number two, I'd like to see all that equipment that's on the ground screened better, because when you drive by there, it looks like a little power plant in there. It's kind of nasty looking in the center of our town, and I just feel like it's such a central location. I feel like it should be screened way better than it's screened, and it just, not very appealing looking.
Whose responsibility would you think that should be?
Whoever's putting the stuff on, whoever's equipment it is, right?
Bunch carriers.
Are
Yeah,
they,
well, if this is the one before us, then,
are they the only ones who have equipment on the water tower, or do other people have equipment on the water tower?
Is it
Four?
4?
No, there are others, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah, well,
That's what I thought.
But-
We'd be glad to share in the costs with everybody that's up there.
I can't imagine it's a
Getting
huge
the 4 different
cost.
people
It's
together is
a-
what fun.
I mean, one of the things would be the new equipment, if we can be, if we can get something indicative of the fact that it can be done on the other side.
Yeah, see, the
These
problem with
interdirectional.
that is, these antennas are set up they have to be set up in certain directions, and it's line-of-sight technology, so we have three different azimuths and directions that the antennas have to go, so we can't backload all of them in one direction. They actually strategically need, we currently have them in a location that allows us to propagate the signal in the directions we need to send it, and that's why these three additional antennas are literally right adjacent to the ones we have, and aren't introducing a new view shed of another group of antennas. It's going to be right with the others.
So the others are gonna remain, and these are gonna be added.
Correct.
So you can't remove the other ones and put these in?
No.
What about the boxes, the 6 boxes that go in there? They have to be there, or can they
They
be
do,
on
because
the-
they have to be close enough because they amplify the signal.
Are they wireless or connected, hardwired to?
Connected.
Hardwired to the antenna?
Yep.
Progress,
Progress.
really.
Well, I
We
wanna
can
know-
put in the,
If you want to give
kind
up
of
your cell
thing you
phone, he
want-
may be able to do some of that.
What's that?
If you want to give up your cell phone, he may be able to do some
I
of
would
it.
be happy to give up my cell phone.
A lot of other people would.
I absolutely
So
would.
what you
I've given up
can,
my computer.
what you may want to ask, Joe, if you, because we can talk about what kind of loss of power you have on a per length of cable, right? So you say it has to be close. So there's an insertion loss of the cable, right?
Yep.
So you'd say, so what are you losing from here to the box? And if you went out 20, 30 feet around, how much would you lose more, and what's the performance of that?
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that. I will tell you that in speaking with our engineers, I know that the remote radio heads or RRHs are always extremely close to the antennas for that very reason. And my understanding, after 4 or 5 or 6 feet, it starts to dissipate to the extent that it's not providing the value it needs to, and then you'd need more of them.
Anything further, Joe?
No, I mean, again, and I know this is something that's been debated back and forth over the years, and I remember I was on actually the overlay committee that put this overlay together to begin with. And they would swear up and down that these radio waves didn't cause any cancer or anything like that. Well, there was just a study actually come out today that I saw that they said that it absolutely does cause in rats. I know we're not rats, but we are made up of, same type of matter, I guess. And so I don't think that's fully understood, but that I guess is a taboo, I guess, because of the federal laws. You can't even question those things. But I think as far as this type of thing, I think there's some accommodations that should be able to be made as far as the aesthetics and us having a look at these. They're expanding, they're not taking down and putting up, they're adding to the ones that are there, and the ones that they're adding are much bigger than the ones that are existing already. It already looks like a zoo up there. It's gonna look out ridiculous.
So at least from the surge protectors, you could put around back, at least to get the three surge protectors, right?
Excuse me?
3 surge protectors?
There will be 3, yes.
Yeah, so you could put those around back. That has nothing to do with the power going into the
Yeah,
radio heads.
exactly.
Going
I
into
would like
the
anything that can be put in the
little
back
house,
to be
the
put in the
structure
back.
house, aren't they?
Was that?
They go into, the surge protectors go
No,
into the
they're going
power.
on top, right?
The surge everything's good, all the surge
It's
protectors, the remote radio heads, and the antennas are all up on top of the
They are, okay.
water tank.
What's that?
All righty, let's,
All right,
you set, Joe?
In line, yeah.
I mean, so
It doesn't have
that's
to
my
be right,
concern,
it
and
doesn't
then-
have to be right next to it.
okay.
It has to be in line with the radio head that's protecting.
Barbara?
I'm going to echo
Right. Yeah.
two of my
Oh,
fellow
it's
board
gonna be
members.
clean.
One of the things
Bill,
that Bill
hang on.
mentioned is
Bill.
that he would like to see a rendition of what this is going to look like, what it looks like today, and what it will look like once this equipment is installed, if it's approved. So that's one thing I'd like to see. I also would like to see the screening that Joe mentioned, and I think we should put that in the decision. If you can get the other providers to split the cost of that with you, I would say that's up to you. If you can't, then you would have to pay for it, but it's really not a lot of money to put in some bushes and plantings to provide that screening. I don't think that's something that's unreasonable. I'd like to see that put in the decision. Lastly, I have a question for staff about how close this is to the nearest residential home.
Close.
Yeah, it's around, I mean, it's.
And
around-
have they been informed of this change?
yes.
Yeah.
I do
Oh,
believe there's a residence.
Okay.
No,
wherever
folks
you
at
want.
home should hear you.
Sure,
Yes.
you can
Take a
sit
seat.
there.
Make sure the
Public
microphone,
speaking, my fear of.
oh, we're
Just
friendly
be
group.
comfortable.
I apologize for the accent. So we're the long-suffering residents. We're right next, right across from the water tower, and I'm not here to try to stop it. Last time, we didn't even try. We didn't realize what a
Could
nightmare.
we have your name and
would
address
be.
for the record,
Yes,
please?
it's 71B Center Street, Elena and Stephen Shannon, Shannon. So I believe my husband has been a thorn emailing you guys, the video, because the noise, a little louder, and thank you, by the way, somebody did address our concerns recently, but prior to that, the noise is unbearable. Something, I think it's the ladder or something else, a cable comes off, and when it's windy or rainy, it's impossible to sleep. It's extremely noisy. And another problem that we had is they have a huge truck. They're not gonna park on the property. It doesn't fit on the property. So what they do is they park at the church property, and our house, our son's bedroom is right there. And for some reason, they do it on weekends and holidays at 7 in the morning. The noise, it's been just very, very difficult for us. So if you could please put it in your decision that they do it on weekdays, or if it has to be a weekend or holiday, at least after 9 o'clock if possible.
I think that's a very reasonable request, yes. But the decision says that the truck has to be parked on the property. To your understanding, is there room for the truck on the property?
I don't know exactly. If we need to be in the public street, then we would have to coordinate with the police department.
Okay, well, it sounds like you should not be parking in the church parking lot because it's right next to a residential
Yeah, I don't know
home.
if it's us or one of the other carriers either.
I'm not sure who. There's
Okay.
other places. They just park for some reason right by our windows.
I will instruct my client not to do that. I
Great, we
can't,
can put that in the decision.
Yeah.
The decision says that the trucks have to be parked on the property.
Well, no, it says that they can't be parked on the sidewalk or on the street.
Okay. I thought it said on the property, and if they had to be on the sidewalk or the street, they had to coordinate with police.
Yes.
Well, that's what the attorney did,
Right.
but the comment was that
But-
they've been parking on the sidewalk instead of into the
Right, but
site.
what this resident is
Right.
telling us is that they're parking at the church.
So they should be parking.
Because
which
they
is-
have a huge crane, they're gonna need a big crane, there's no
Yeah.
way, it's a very big vehicle, it is not gonna fit.
Right.
It's gonna close the street, so it can't be on the street. So what they do is, and I understand, they have to park it on a church property because it's that large. But if they could at least not do it on the weekend or holiday that early in the morning, I mean, weekdays, we go to work, so that's fine.
Yeah, I will call to your attention, the new construction bylaw that was just passed would change the times
The hours.
and would make weekends not permissible until after that. So
Okay,
that'll help.
Could we put it into the decision that it
course.
has to be during weekdays, during regular
Yep.
business
We would
hours, so not on
absolutely
the
agree to
weekend at
that.
all?
And the question to the resident, what is it that's making the noise?
Wind, yeah.
So I think
is
it's been fixed a
problematic?
few days ago. So first it was the ladder that wasn't attached properly, so when it's
So it
windy
was
or rainy,
banging?
it bangs all
Oh.
the time. And then the cable came, I'm sorry?
Has that been fixed, the ladder?
So I believe, so it hasn't been windy, so somebody did come out, and I think they emailed my husband because he actually sent a video to show you guys, to listen to the noise, and the cable, one of the cables came off. And I think for now it's been fixed, but every time it gets really windy, I think it somehow dislodges, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
happened.
the ladder is required to be repaired.
Okay.
Per the selectmen and the building department and echoed in this decision, their comments. The cable, we can certainly echo as well.
Thank you very much.
If it happens again, don't suffer with it. Let the town know right
Usually
away.
it happens on a weekend when everybody is, you can reach anyone, so yeah, it's been, but thank you. I think the town has
Give
been
a
really
Bernie's phone
responsive,
number.
but it's hard for you guys also to reach, from what we understand, people to come out and do it.
yeah. If code enforcement has any issues with anything of at and Ts, we'll be right out there to fix it.
Yeah, we recently did change our construction hours, and
And we will comply with those, absolutely. Saturdays, that won't happen on the
the
weekends.
difficulty is for sometimes us or a resident.
I totally
Four
agree.
different carriers on there. We don't know whether it's the
Yep.
town's ladder or
I agree.
somebody else's, so that sometimes can have a problem. And we do know all these companies have stuff on telephone poles, and it is a bear to get them to coordinate replacement on a new telephone pole. Your client may be one of them. So, but here
So-
on the tower, it's not we should be able to react quicker to equipment on the tower that's causing a problem.
So for me, just to clarify, what I'm asking is not that we put something in different than what is in the new construction laws and say that it must happen on weekdays only during business hours, not on weekends or holidays, when these people want to enjoy their home.
That's fine with us.
Thank
This is
you.
the problem we have when the legislators allow powerful lobbyists to convince them that it's a good idea to put commercial uses in the middle of residential areas. This is the problem you get. You know,
And I would just add that this site is in the overlay district.
I understand that,
So-
but it's only in the overlay district because because the federal law required us to put it in.
Well, I don't think they required that location.
No, they
the-
required locations.
Locations, but
would have
not that
all
specific
fallen
one.
within residential areas. I was on the committee at the time.
No, I
so
hear you.
90% of them fall within residential areas.
Right,
and
we
that's the
didn't
problem,
pick this
so.
water tank site.
No, I understand. It's,
Put it
you
in
know,
the
but it's
overlay
either that water tank or it's, or it's two, places over from there and it's all within residential
I hear
areas.
you. There's
so it
definitely
doesn't-
chunks of towns that the only areas it can go, I know what you're saying.
Okay, so one last thing, for this residents' information, if there is another problem with something coming loose and causing noise, should she call the building department? Should she call the planning department? Who is her contact?
Contact for wireless is Kate Moskis in the Selectman's office, or Town Administrator's office. So between Kate and the building department, that should be resolved. Kate can't enforce, but she is managing all the wireless contracts on town property.
So who should the resident call?
I would start with the building department, but
Building
I think
department.
both will be.
I would give her both numbers, building department and Kate
I'd probably
Moskis'
send an email
number.
to CCing both.
Right,
Yeah.
maybe.
Nobody is
And maybe a
available on the
number on
weekend,
the
though, right?
week, for the
Well,
weekends.
but that's true. No one's available
So-
on the weekend,
Well,
unfortunately.
the police department's available on the weekend, but.
Oh,
And-
God.
and- Yeah, you-
Oh,
you-
that's
had
about
enough
it.
of us.
Well, yeah, but you can call the police department's non-emergency number and ask them to let the building, because they can get a hold of the building department or the DPW.
Yeah,
Or
we've
if
done
the
it so many
truck is-
times, I'm afraid they're not gonna come if we're being robbed or something.
Oh, no.
No, call the non-emergency number and
Yes.
just ask them to get somebody out to you on the weekend. They
Thank
will.
you. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all I have, thank
Paul?
you.
If it's us, we'll take care of everything.
My background's biology, and when you start talking small cell, I'm saying that should go to the Board of Health. Yes, yeah. No, my concern would be any structural issues, which it seems like the staff has made sure that all of the Ts are crossed and the Is dotted as far as that's concerned, because after all, to the people that want things on there, that's their primary concern, but ours,
to even touch that
ours
subject.
is that it starts out, it's a water tower. So we want to make certain of the integrity and all of that as far as the town is concerned. Yeah,
Anything further?
that's it.
Carol?
You said that nothing's being replaced. Will, in the future, do you think that they'll be wanting to replace those 12-inch wide panels with the 20-inch wide panels, or?
I wish I could predict what future technology will be. I don't know. I mean, these ones have been there for 17 years, and they still do the job for that type of frequency they're trying to send. So my guess is they'll still be around a while longer, but I don't know for sure. I want to be perfectly candid.
Okay.
This gentleman's a lawyer, right?
I'd have to come back to you if that happens.
Right, okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think to Joe's point earlier, if you can't change the radio heads around back, but you should be able to take the surge protectors. So it looks like they line up surge protector to radio head to antenna. The surge protectors don't need to be close to the radio head. They can be outside, because just talking about the power that's coming in from a surge protector standpoint. And then I just see on here that there's going to be 6 new cables, two per side on the 3 sides, in addition to the current ones you have?
Yep.
Okay. And those, so I think we had trouble with the cables. I'm just want to see if there's some condition on there with regard to the cables, that they be secured, so there's, with the additional cables there, I'm just trying to get a picture of this with the existing water tower and the new cables, how that's going to be different.
So they're firmly attached, it won't flap in the wind and
Right.
wake this lady up at night.
But then you're adding, again, you're changing it from a water tower to basically antenna,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because now you've got, I don't know how many existing cables are there that AT&T has by themselves, but, now you're adding 2 additional ones per side. It's basically, and then I noticed you guys saying it's going to match the water tower. Here it talks about the units being gray or light gray in color, but you condition it to say it's going to be the same color as the water tower.
That includes the cables have to be the same color?
Yes.
Yeah, it says-
Everything, all equipment.
All
Oh,
equipment.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Bill, you had requested that we be given a rendition to
Yeah, I
see
think
what it's
that'd be,
going to look like.
great
I
to say,
think that
here's
would
what
be
it looks
good.
like today, and here's with the extra cables, here's
Yes.
with the extra, radio heads, the extra antennas,
The extra
is what it's
shrubs.
gonna look like.
Right. And
Extra
also,
shrubs would be great.
well, the extra shrubs on that, I don't know how you have that written up. Is that going to be something that the applicant will approve with staff or with our chairman, or how do you want
Or I
to
think
do
it needs
that?
to be approved before it gets approved.
So you guys just brought it up, so I have to draft, additional screening and plantings, but I haven't figured all that out.
Right, I'm just asking the way, when we put it in the decision, do we want that to be approved by staff or by staff
I
and the
think
chair?
we've got some time because they have to, some work on the
It's up to
tower
you.
has to be done before even the permit can be issued on this. Do you have any idea how far off that is? A month or 2 months?
I think it'll all, if we're to get an approval, we'll then have to coordinate with DPW and the building department on that work, and then that work will take a period of time, so.
That
this-
period of time, do you have any
I
idea?
don't know exactly what that would be.
Could be a month, could be 3 months, we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
my
so
question
to
was
Barbara's-
regarding the
Planned
timing.
Until the
Well,
spring
that may,
anyway.
it may be before, it may not happen until we meet again.
But the timing for maintenance isn't before we approve it, the maintenance needs to be done before a building permit is issued.
Correct.
So therefore, for us, you can approve it tonight, but it's up to you. If you want to approve it tonight, we can put something in
Right, but I think
to have
he's
it
saying there's no
approved.
rush
If
to
you're,
do it tonight.
if you're looking to get additional information, I would ask for that
Yeah.
within the additional information. So
Okay.
it's up to you how you want to.
So the rendition of what it looks like today versus what's proposed with, I was just going to tell, but Joe, you're right, with landscaping and.
And the
how
landscaping, yeah.
What it looks in the future would be
So
great to
maybe we
have.
just ask for that when they come back.
Yeah,
Pretty?
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A couple of questions. There's only one structure on the ground, is that correct? There's not one structure for each carrier?
Correct. It's a building.
It's
A
shared.
One
building
room
that's
and-
separated with a room for you and a room
There's
for
4 rooms already.
Verizon or whatever. Okay. So are you going to try and, to get back to the landscaping for a second, can we put the onus on you to coordinate with the other carriers?
I think we already did.
We can try, but unfortunately,
We just did.
We just
Okay.
did. And
Never
if they
mind, we just did.
coordinate, that's great. If they don't coordinate, it's on his client.
yeah, which I think isn't fair, but
Yeah, but,
It's okay.
It would
you
be
know,
next guy.
sure you think it's
if it
okay.
wasn't,
come
if
here
it wasn't
looking
you,
for
it'd be the other
fairness?
guys. Also.
The one who's asking for something from us right now, so, yeah.
under federal law, so, okay.
Sure. Do you know what the power output of each of the antennas is now and what it will be afterwards?
What the new ones, I don't know.
One cell guy.
You do not know what the power output of the,
What the power outage will be,
right.
I don't know, off the top of my head.
The power,
And
RF
antennas
You're talking about the
RF water
the
tower.
RF emissions?
Yes,
I
yeah.
can tell you that they will be a fraction of the FCC limit, below probably 5% of the FCC limit.
So they will be more or less than what's there now?
Conceivably, well, more because we're adding more antennas, but incrementally, maybe 1% of the FCC limit. So if the FCC limit is here and we're here now, it would move a hair above that. We're still, I can guarantee, we'll still be at least 95% below the FCC limit.
So it'd be all right if the permit said that you'd be 95% below?
I don't know, I'm giving you that as an illustration.
Okay.
I will tell you this, we can guarantee that we will comply with all local, state, and federal
Okay.
guidelines regarding emissions.
And just-
I'm just telling you as an aside, it's a fraction of the limit.
And just for my own curiosity, do these antennas broadcast at a different frequency than the existing ones?
Yes.
Do.
Well, yes.
I didn't look in detail at the plan, but if you could educate me on that?
On sheet C6, it references the antennas and the bands. This is 700 AWS, so it's the same frequency, it's 700. The AWS is another slice or component of that. So it's in the same family as the 700 frequency,
Okay.
but
I'm good. Thank you.
Are we going to continue this, or
I think we should.
you want to continue?
Yeah, what it's going to look like.
All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience besides Mrs. Shannon? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 15th, 2018.
could I just add one thing before you move forward? To the extent that other carriers then have 5-year permit renewals, which I assume they do, as a condition of their new renewals, they will be forced to contribute to the, any landscaping that you're requiring.
Do you know how much that landscaping's going to cost?
I'm just, but there's maintenance, I don't know what you have in mind. Do you, can you tell me what you have in mind?
To staff,
Well, I think, okay, go ahead.
to your knowledge, do the other three carriers have the same 5-year permit renewal criteria? Do you know?
If they are of the same-ish vintage, I would anticipate that, yes, they definitely all do. There's
Okay.
a lot of different shapes and sizes of wireless approvals.
Yeah.
When we started out, but in
So we've
the
never
late
seen any
90s,
of
but
So it requires
The-
approval from us?
I can't speak exactly to this. It's written differently in
Yeah.
many of the different ones,
Well, I'm
but
saying, since I've been on here, I don't remember
Yeah.
any renewals that have come before us. So either somebody signing these renewals that we don't know about, or
Are they not?
they're getting
Similar-
renewed by somebody else.
similar to this situation, they haven't
Well,
come
so
in.
is it a planning board renewal, or is it a board of selectmen, a lease renewal? Because that's a
It's
whole
planning
different-
board, the
It's a
lease
planning
is
board.
in place, you guys are collecting tons of money from all of us.
Well, we're not.
The town is,
side
you-
right,
anyone
that's-
living in
yeah.
the town is benefiting
Yeah,
from it.
right.
Planning board, 5
So,
years.
So I think it sounds like the planning board, we need to ask planning staff to research the other 3 carriers that are
Yeah.
there and whether or not they are overdue to come back to us for their 5-year renewal.
Yes, so as a larger project, because they are over between the mid-90s and the mid-2000s, they came in a lot of different shapes and sizes. We are looking at all wireless approvals and trying to figure out, really how it was written, what are the key things to make sure we're keeping on top of. So, because it's between the building department and our department,
Okay, so,
they're all very different. So we want to try to find a universal standard as we move forward for them. And what's the process to get people in after that 5
Yeah.
years? And who do we contact? And make sure we
So,
have all of that information.
with that in mind, to answer your question, whenever they come before us for their 5-year renewal, I will ask them for additional landscaping.
And I didn't want you to think I'm trying to skirt that
No,
obligation.
no, you put in the landscaping that we agree to when you come back in 2 weeks, and then whoever comes before us next, I'm going to ask them for more.
Okay.
So are all these, so in other words, just to follow logically along that line of reasoning, is that, so every one of those ones that's up there is illegally up there at this point?
No.
We've never renewed them. I've never renewed them. And if it
Yes.
requires a renewal from this board, we've never renewed them.
And I think it's been the town's negligence in not asking them to come back for the
Well,
renewal.
you shouldn't have to ask them. And renewal should be it's a legal ramification to a renewal. A renewal is either renewed or it's not. So in other words, if they haven't been renewed, then they're illegally out there,
Is it renewal or is it recertification, or how is it? Do you know the language?
Well, the
sounds like
attorney
staff's
would
gonna
know,
have to look
probably,
into
right?
it.
You
In this
would know.
particular one, I don't have the.
What
I don't have
would
the-
be the legal ramifications of not renewing?
I'm just, hold on, I'm just looking for the language on that one, on that condition.
From the 01,
Yeah.
What's that?
from the 01 decision. The original.
Start a chant, take them.
Special.
Maybe that question could be answered when you come back.
Okay.
And maybe between then and now, staff can have gathered information, you can have gathered information, and we can see how fast we can get the others to come in if they are overdue for the renewal. And maybe we can collectively get them all to work together
Yeah.
and coordinate for the
As-
town's
as
benefit.
some of
I have to
Of a
tell you,
landscaping
I
plan
think
on
if we try and do that, it's going to delay your project dramatically.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
As-
But on our, just to make it clear, when you come back, what I think we're
he
looking for is a
understands the cost
rendition of what it's going to look
six shrubs is
like.
less than
Right.
2 hours of
What
your
it's going to
time.
look like, your
I'm
landscape
sorry,
plan.
just one of you at a time. I want to make sure I
When you
get
come
everything you want.
back, I'm going to want to see a rendition of what this whole thing is going to look like, what it looks like now, and what it's
Okay.
going to look like after the project is done.
Yep.
And a landscape plan for the screening.
Okay.
Is there anything else?
And the RF now, and the actual numbers of the RF, right?
I'll have a full MPE study
Right,
done.
and in the meantime, our staff is going to look into the other carriers, but that's not really your problem.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
but
well,
this
we'll-
could be our opportunity to
Yes.
bring them all in and get a landscape plan from the whole group. I mean, just, in other words, an
Right, I think
elaborate
that's gonna slow
landscape
everything
plan that
down.
will, the neighbors would be happy with, and the town would be happy with, and everybody would be happy with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
may
should-
slow
Can't do
down their
anything about the
project,
town.
though, if they
Well,
have to coordinate.
If we can coordinate all of these 4 different carriers to come in the same month,
But to your point, you know, I don't know what you have in mind. And we're not, you know, this isn't huge dollars like you said. But if you want a Jerusalem tulipesius around it or some other type of, I don't
Could
know
you
what
spell
you have
that,
in
please?
mind. What's that?
would you spell that, please? She's trying to write it down.
I would suggest that you have your client contact our staff to
Okay.
get some direction.
Do we have a motion? Did you have a motion?
That would not-
The motion was made, but it was not completed and seconded.
I did make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of November 15th.
Second.
And I think that was the point where all this other discussion
Yes.
came up
Right.
on both sides, at both requests. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I guess before we finish, have we given council, is there anything that we need to give you as far as instructions or requests, or do you think you have gotten it all? You've
I
been
think
pretty
I've
good
got
at
it.
your notes.
Photo sims, landscaping plan, talk to the planning staff about that. Maximum permissible exposure study, factoring in the new antennas. And that's it.
Okay.
Great.
Staff, is there anything else you think needs to be in his punch list?
No, but we'll be in contact.
Okay, all righty. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 700.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you.
I'll see you all again.
Are you ready for a motion on D, E, F?
Where are we? What page are you
We're on
on?
page
On
8.
page-
Page 8,
Eight,
in the middle of the
okay.
page. I make a motion to take items 7D, 7E, and 7F together for discussion purposes.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. This is public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.5.10, automobile dealership which may include integrated structured parking of the zoning bylaws. 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers, Cambridge Street LLC applicant. Item 7E, public hearing, application for approval of a site plan, 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers, Cambridge Street LLC applicant. And item 7F, discussion, application for approval of a minor engineering change, 64 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers LLC applicant. There's nothing here for 62. 62 is not a part of what's in front of us. Is that correct? All of these say 64. Is 62 Cambridge Street in front of
Oh,
us?
the F should say 62.
And was it advertised that way?
Yeah.
Okay. So F is discussion, application for approval of minor engineering change to 62 Cambridge Street, Herb Chambers Street LLC applicant.
So only on F?
F is 62, the other,
Thank you.
both are 64.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein, representing the petitioner, Herb Chambers Company, in connection with the application. Just very briefly, I'll introduce same cast of characters that we had at your last meeting, but Chris Sparagus, our civil engineer with Williams and Sparagus, Mark Regent, our architect with Regent Associates, Rick Bryant, traffic engineer with Stantec, and John Welch, who is Director of Construction for Herb Chambers Companies. So pleased to be before you in connection with the matter. Obviously, we did have a public hearing with you a couple of weeks ago on a rare Wednesday night meeting that you had, where we introduced the subject matter and had a pretty lengthy discussion about the project. So I'm going to try not to be repetitive, but I know you're obviously familiar with the site and what is being proposed, but basically, we are looking for special permit, site plan approval to construct a Porsche dealership building that would be located at 64 Cambridge Street. The plan that we have presented and that you see is very consistent with that which was presented before town meeting as part of the adoption of, the zoning bylaw that was approved this past spring. So when we were before you a couple of weeks ago, I know that there were several comments and questions that had come up that I did submit a letter to staff, and I know that there's been some renderings and plans that have been submitted as well. So I thought it might be helpful to just quickly walk through that, if I could. Actually, maybe before I do that, I'll start off with the last item. So if I could, Mr. Chairman, I know Board Member LaRue, you had asked if we could notify additional residential neighbors of the proposal. So I did confer with my client. They were fine doing that. So we did send out notice last week to...
Right, I read that in, I skimmed it
Okay.
quickly just a few moments ago, but I haven't had a chance to look this over. It just came in today, and I actually received it about 30 seconds ago, so I haven't had time
Okay.
to
All right.
review any of this information.
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm letting you know that you had asked that we notify the
Yes.
same residential...
I did see that you did that in my
we did that.
30-second review.
So I just figured I would mention that similar to what was done when the inventory storage lot was approved, I think you had a similar request. So,
Thank you.
so firstly, with respect to the plan, again, there was discussion about car carrier activity and also the landscaping and lighting, and if we could show a more accurate representation of what we're proposing to do. Maybe I'll start first with the car carrier. So basically, if I could maybe use this plan. Today, car carriers come in 62 Cambridge Street, have the ability to go around the building or come in and do this maneuver here in order to get out. We're not interfering with that whatsoever as part of our redevelopment proposal, and that is what we would continue to see for car carrier operations. However, I know the board had expressed a concern that, what happens in the distant future if Mr. Chambers is no longer at 62, and therefore that needs to be accommodated solely on the 64 Cambridge Street property. So I think I have mentioned, he has a long-term ground lease for 62. It goes to 2043 at least, so it's at least 25 years. But notwithstanding that, we did come up with a plan that shows how car carriers can be accommodated on 64 Cambridge Street if in the future that needed to be done. So maybe if I could have Chris just quickly walk through that analysis and how that turning template has been accommodated.
Is it just the mute button, or?
I think I hit the button.
I think it works, working.
Is that working?
It takes you have to talk for a second and a half before it kicks in.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Chris Sparagus from the Engineering Office of Williams and Sparagus. And before you is a color/black and white color up showing a car carrier movement coming into 64, very similar in nature to the turning movement that we've shown the board previously for 62 Cambridge Street. So a car carrier with this configuration, and I'll go into how it would have to be modified slightly to allow this, but a car carrier could come into the site and essentially do a three-point turn to be able to come back out. So they would come in, park temporarily, unload their vehicles, back up, and then come back out. You have a copy of this as an 11 by 17 rendering in front of you, and you can see that there is some red line work. The red line work represents the curb line that we showed on our proposed plan that we initially submitted with this application.
So the red line is before, the black line is
That's
after.
correct.
Okay.
So in order to allow this turning movement, we would have to slightly adjust the curb line here on this island. And
That's, and that
and the
curb
curb line
that's taken
here.
away is on the property or in the right-of-way?
Over in this area, it would be within the right-of-way.
Okay.
And then here, it would be on the property where we would have to eliminate one parking spot from the row of 16 that are assigned for customer parking in front of the property.
And that is using the turning template for a car carrier, just as the 62 Cambridge Street was designed, correct? Yeah.
That's correct. We use the same car carrier template that we used and have shown the board previously for the 62 property.
Have had a chance of fire department to review this?
No, we have just received this week.
Okay.
We don't expect to close the hearing tonight. They haven't yet filed with
Yeah,
Concom,
this
so
is-
this is just an opportunity to talk through the options as well as some of the
The
landscape.
new information we got in response to our last meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
But, Mr. Chairman, just to answer your question, we have a separate turning template for both fire apparatus and refuse collection that shows that, with both of the configurations for 64 Cambridge, both fire apparatus and refuse can get around the building fully using the turning template provided by the fire department.
That's correct. And because this opening opens up, if you will, the refuse vehicle and the fire department vehicle, it would be the same movement. It's a little bit easier with this configuration.
Good. All righty, anything further?
Yeah, so the other main item that we talked about at the last meeting is a desire to see a more accurate rendering of the proposed building with the additional landscaping along the Cambridge Street frontage. I know a request had also been made, I think Board Member Impember, about whether we could give some consideration to reducing the height of the light poles that were going to be along that front area. So what we have submitted to you, and I think you all have a reduced size copy of this, is a revised rendering that incorporates additional landscaping features, as well as showing a reduction in the height of the,
So that's C 7.1?
I don't know what,
Yeah, this is a.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, that's two different plans, Mr. Chairman, yeah, it's the landscape plan along with the rendering itself, but, so it's a much more robust landscaping plan than what had been presented before in terms of a number of plantings that we feel are, strike a proper balance, some additional street trees as well. Rather than my muddying my way through it, why don't I have Chris again summarize, since he actually prepared the plan, but
Okay, when you went through it last time, Chris, the depth of the berm from the street front where it went up and to where the head of the cars would be was narrowed. Have you changed that dimension, or are you maintaining the same dimension?
So we're maintaining the same dimension that you saw last time, but what we've done now, and I'll go through it very quickly, we worked together with the architect, Mark Reed's office. Mark was able to take our plan view of the landscaping island, together with our specific measurements that we took of every existing plant and tree that's out on the existing landscape island, and they were able to take it and turn it into a nice rendering so that you could put these up next to each other. And when you look at all the plantings here, and I'll go over them in detail in a minute, they match up very nicely to the depiction that's shown there.
The rendering.
From that perspective, if you will. So what we've done, we've talked a little bit about this before. Our design approach was to try to save as much of that existing landscape island as we could with the proposed layout for the new Porsche building and the customer parking out front. And the way we were able to do that, the physical presence of these parking spaces encroaches into the existing landscape island, as I explained before. But what we've been able to do is, at the back edge of the curbing, we designed the grade of the parking lot and that curbing to match the exact grade of the landscape island along that line. And so the only disturbance that really has to take place is up to the berm and maybe a little bit beyond. And so we were able to design that into our grading plan So along the strip that I described last time, where we were going to lose some plantings, what we're proposing to do now after listening to some of your comments from the last meeting, is that what we'd like to do is to transplant especially the evergreen shrubbery, which consists primarily of 2 different species of holly bushes. Our measurements tell us that they vary anywhere from 2 to 3 feet wide, and sometimes as high as 3 to 3.5 feet tall. And we'd like to transplant those, and we've identified 38 of those holly bushes that we'd like to transplant from the area where they would be lost into an area where today it's essentially all grass. And so we'd like to start by planting that row of holly, and then as you can see in the rendering here, in front of the holly, we're also proposing to plant 63 additional fountain grass plantings in front of the holly bushes along the front section of the landscape island here to really fill all of that in. And all of this takes place on the property of number 64. And then, having looked at the previous landscape design in the species list, we also are proposing 3 additional tree plantings of red maples. And the caliper, the size that we've chosen, is about 3.5 inches. So at planting time, that's a tree that's about 12 to 14 feet tall at these 3 locations here. And this particular red maple eventually will grow to be 30 to 40 feet high and have a similar spread. And so together here, this is how we've enhanced this strip of landscaping. And once you get to about this location here, the landscaping island widens, and it's as wide as 30 feet deep. All of those plantings are existing plantings, and primarily they're mostly trees. Trees that include both coniferous trees, multiple pine trees, some birches, and some other deciduous trees, and the heights are pretty significant. This is the existing condition, of course, that the tree height varies anywhere from 14 to 20 feet high. And so across this section here, this area remains very much intact. So if you were traveling, for example, in this direction on our plan, which is essentially south along Cambridge Street, and you were to look in this direction, this area here remains very much, it will remain very much the way it looks today. And so that's how we've approached this landscape island enhancement with our revised rendering in the landscaping plan.
So were you going to plant, either transplant or put new plantings on the southernmost part of that landscape? Is there any seasonal restrictions? Can they be done now, or are you going to have to wait until next spring or fall? What is your plan for the timing?
So for timing, as we, once we have frozen ground conditions, it's very difficult to transplant. But this time of the year, in particular, the late fall, is a perfect time to do this type of work.
So you may be doing that before you even start building?
Well, that's a good question. What we can do is we can talk to the folks at Herb Chambers to see, we'd like to try to get our project approved first.
Yeah.
That's most important, but absolutely, we're open to any ideas like that to make sure that we.
Well, I just remember how difficult it was last time. There was a delay for seasonal reasons,
I see.
and then it was painful, the
Right,
process
right.
we went through for 2 years trying to get it done, and
Well, I think there
I
was
don't
a
want to do that
water
again.
ban and
Sure.
things.
I have a quick question. You're losing that portion right at the beginning of that strip, aren't you? Because that strip looks like the drawing before you made the change.
Which strip are you talking about, where the driveway is?
Yes,
Today, of course, this planting island extends across.
no, I'm talking,
Where the new cars are parked with the
see the little brown strip, the skinny one?
Here.
Yeah.
Isn't that the old configuration, and didn't you say that you were changing it to?
It gets wider, actually, in,
Yeah,
to
They're
accommodate
taking
the-
some of that away, yes.
that would
What
go
is-
away if in the future we needed to modify the plan to accommodate car carriers on this site, then
No, you need to make, I think, I, for one, want the car carry, I don't want you to wait until in the future to accommodate car carriers. The car carriers need to be accommodated ASAP.
Yeah.
Right,
Just,
right now. I
Right,
mean,
no, I think we're talking the same thing, Carol, if I could. I mean, so, I guess what we're suggesting is that they would continue the access to the site today, as they do today, where they would come in and, I mean, this plan shows it better, right?
I think what we're saying is, you ask these to be considered as two separate sites, and we're asking you to show that both sites can function independent of the other one.
Yeah.
Whether you continue to put the car carriers all in 62,
Well,
that's your choice, but you have to show us that the car carriage will function in 64 now.
Right.
Without, the way it's built, not without.
My understanding how we left
62.
it was that we would show that we could modify this plan in the future if we had to provide car carriers on 64, but since the sites operate together now, and, you know, this inventory storage lot that's here today is serviced by car carriers this same exact way. They come in here, and they come out and go like that. So we're not doing anything as part of this development project that alters that. I mean, our preference would be to keep that.
But your drawing T1.3 shows that with slight modification to the driveway and that little nub of the island taken away, now, you're on the correct sheet, okay,
Yeah.
functions now, or functions as, you can make that function as proposed,
With-
independent.
With that red, the red part is the way it looks now. We want it to look the way the black looks. It needs to be built that way now.
So
Since-
you're saying
okay.
that you
Let me see if
want.
I've got this correct.
You don't build it to
Since
the
you're
right.
removing part of that to accommodate the car carrier, show that removed part in the design plan for the landscape. Is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because it,
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And, you know, what that would, you know, that would.
and does that take anything away from, does that remove anything out of that section of landscaping?
It actually adds a little bit more.
Okay.
I think we can work with the
Yeah.
board to accommodate that. So,
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because if something happened with Audi and Audi went away, or whatever, or Porsche was, they're now gonna be two separate entities, and they need to work as you can still work together now, but they still need to be, they both need to work as their own.
Well, I think he gets that. He has to show us that each functions independently of the other, if need be. How they actually, in practice, do it for the next 17 years
Right.
is
I
not
think
our
that-
concern.
Yeah, I think that's where we were going initially with the car carrier thing, thinking that we would not have to do it initially. But if that's what the board wants, I think
Yeah,
we can
no,
we can
I'd
accommodate
like
that.
it to
So,
be-
Okay.
Yeah, you have to prove to us that it will function.
Yeah, it needs to be done now, please.
So the other element that changed in this particular landscape alley, you may recall, we have 3 light poles, and what we did was we took a look at the height, and we lowered them from 22 feet down to 20 feet. And we ran our photometric analysis, and it still proves out okay. So these 3 light poles, which are twin-mounted heads, are now lowered by 2 feet as well.
The other question that came up on that, because you are changing the elevation of the northern part of the parking lot by 4 or 5 feet, I think somebody raised the question of where the headlights of parked SUVs are relative to this landscaping.
Right, so that's a good question, because once Mark's office drew the perspective plan, it started to become very obvious. So as you look, of course, this is where the lower, there's some lower landscaping, and then as you get to about right here, you see the taller plantings that I described. You can see the row of parking and where the cars are relative to the plantings. So these plantings, even the ones that one transplanted at 3 to 3.5 feet high, are going to do a nice job blocking the headlights of cars that are parked there.
So, but the berm, the top of the berm minus the plantings will be below headlight level of an SUV. All the way up, because
We're essentially, we're approximately, the berm, the old berm, let's call it, okay? And I can pull out the grading plan, but the berm is about 6 inches higher than the parking spaces. So to answer your question, yes, a vehicle would be sitting, you know, if everything was clear cut, you know, the lights would be shining over the
Over the top of the berm?
top of the berm.
Okay, so you'll be relying upon the vegetation to block the headlight glare into vehicles traveling on Cambridge Street?
That's correct, and you may remember I alluded to the fact that as you drive northbound on Cambridge Street, the land starts to drop. You remember there's a wetland across the street and the ramp. That's another element that also helps, you know, this land drops off much lower than the berm, if you will.
So amongst the plans you'll be submitting to us, there'll be topographical plans showing us elevations of that area
Yes,
in
all
detail?
of those elevations are on the topographic plan.
Okay.
Joe?
Go ahead, Joe.
Just a quick question. So this actual picture, this rendering of the landscape is accurate?
Very much so.
It is, because I heard you reference 4 red maples, and I don't see them anywhere in there.
So there are 3.
Oh, did you say 3 or
There's
4?
1, 2, and 3.
Those are red maples?
That's right. So they don't turn red until the fall.
Red maples?
That's right.
The leaves?
They turn red instead of yellow in the fall.
There are some red maples
Red
that are red
maples.
all the time.
I have red maples that are red year-round.
So I believe that this particular species, and I can look it up, it isn't until the fall that they,
Oh, so they're green red maples.
In the summer?
no, to answer your question, though, I'll double check.
It doesn't matter, as long as the trees are there, it's fine, you know, I just didn't see what I know as red maples, so yeah.
Well, I know I have red maples in my yard. They're the kind that.
The Japanese maple?
Red maple is very, very hardy. It can grow in a wetland. It can grow outside of a wetland, up on top of a hill, at the bottom of a hill. The ones that are in my wetland, out in my backyard, they're green until this time of the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had red maples in our yard growing up, and they were
Yeah.
truly red.
All the time.
Like, not bright red, they were like a maroonish red all year round.
That's like a Japanese red maple,
No,
no?
no, Japanese is a particular variety of a leaf.
The leaf is a different shape.
These are truly a maple leaf, but they're like a real deep,
Yeah, there are some
Dark
that are
red.
like that, the
All
dark
right,
red
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, he'll get more
Till they
detail
fall
on that
off.
to us.
that's a red.
All righty.
Yes. It's on my neighbor.
Trying to think of the requests that we sent your way with last meeting.
Yes.
Have you addressed them all?
Those were the major ones that we heard. I know that there was some other commentary that, you know, we did look into. You know, Mr. Impemba, you had asked just to make sure that, you know, environmental analysis was done in terms of all that. So that's been cleared. You know, we have both a Phase 1 and a Phase 2 analysis that was done for the property. There's no reportable concentrations of anything.
Mark, was that, so the question, and I,
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying that any of those allegations were correct, incorrect.
Right, right.
All I know is there was, you know, record would show there was a person making the allegations, and I don't know if the allegations, so the tests that were taken, were they to the site as it sits right now, or was it prior to taking down? Because I don't know what he was talking about, if he was talking about the existing building from before, was demolished and buried, and within that debris, it existed, which wouldn't show if you had done a test on it prior to that.
Yeah, well, I think that
building being taken
both the building before was tested, but also there were test pits done as well of the site, correct? Right. So, you know, going down into the ground to test it as well. So,
Recently?
They were done as part of the acquisition of the property, when it was
Again,
acquired.
Yeah, but that was before the building was taken down, right?
And there was also oversight during construction. As the building was taken down, there was additional oversight by a licensed site professional as part of that 21E work.
Right.
So
it was
so
another-
the 21E was done after the purchase of the property, but before the demolition of the building? The 21E was started?
So the 21E would, when the 21E is done, what are the actual elements or, you know, contaminants that they're looking for? Is that, you know, in other words, that's not all encompassing a 21E. That would be more of like an oil or a, you know, a petroleum leakage or some type of contamination from an oil or petroleum substance, right? Not necessarily any hazardous substance.
So normally it's any, and so there's a specific procedure, and I'm not an expert in all things LSP and 21E. This goes back to my days at CDM when I was in the landfill group. But the Phase 1 site assessment includes a
Yeah,
very...
I'm familiar with
Includes a very involved historical search and analysis, town records, town files, initial site visit. They look at regional maps, they look at what other sites are listed and how they may or may not
Surrounding
affect this
sites,
property,
yep, that's right.
that sort of thing. And then they conduct a site visit, look at the existing operations, and if anything seems a little bit out of place, it could lead to Phase 2, which is a little bit more of an investigation. And this site underwent both a Phase 1 site
Right,
assessment and a
which
Phase
again,
2.
Again, not to belabor it, but that's in line with, when you're looking at surrounding sites, you're looking at surrounding sites for contaminants that could infiltrate underground. And the types of things that were alleged were not contaminants that could infiltrate underground necessarily, right? They're talking about petroleums and those types of, volatile substances that, maybe would be from a cleaner or a gas station or, something like that.
You're talking about a plume type movement.
Well, what I'm talking about is the contaminants were more petroleum-based or a liquefied, something that would.
Move in a plume
that
with
could-
underground
that could-
water,
right,
yeah.
that could literally make their way through soils.
Yeah.
The contaminants that they were talking about, and again, I want everybody to be very clear, I'm not in any way giving credence to it, I just want to make sure that they're.
I think I think it's covered, Joe, well, I know it's covered between, what the Phase 2 did, but also, the Board of Health, we had to appear before for the project, and they submitted a lengthy list of conditions that I know the board would include, one of which is should releases of oil and/or hazardous materials or other conditions be encountered during site activities, Burlington bylaw requires the Board of Health be notified of any. So obviously, if anything's found, we'd have to deal with it, but we're very comfortable. I don't think the property would have been purchased without having, proper assurances that it was in good shape, but.
Again, I don't think a 21E encompasses these things that were talked about, but only my concern that those things are verified, that they're not existent. So maybe you could,
Let them know that.
go as far as wherever the allegations were made, find out if there was any credence to them. That's, that's all I'm saying, before the soil gets disrupted and, when they check a 21E, it's checking for certain things, and I don't necessarily think they're checking for those, so. And my hopes are that there aren't, and everything can move forward and everything is good, so,
So my question, when you referred to Joe's question, was, is there anything else of the things requested that you want to present to us?
I don't think that there are, from our notes, anything that we felt that we haven't covered. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All righty. There is one new report from the police indicating they just want to be sure that car carriers will unload on the property, not on the street. That's from Sergeant Jerry McDonough.
Yes,
You're aware of that?
I'm aware of that, and
Okay.
that is why we have gone through this exercise, to be able to show how that is done and
Good.
can be done. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anything further, staff, at this point?
Just a couple quick things. So I think the vegetation in front along the street, they're moving in the right direction. We spoke this week I spoke this week with the engineer and Attorney Vaughn in terms of how to present this information. I think a lot of questions came up at the last meeting. Kind of, what is it now? What is it gonna be? And I know, we spent so much time talking about the vegetation planted and what it's gonna look like. And right now, I think it looks like we wanted it to look. And I think one of the things that I would recommend moving forward is kind of figuring out this conversation between obviously what's there now. They're looking for something different now that there's a use there, which is fine. But kind of figuring out what that balance is between what's existing, how much we can kind of keep of existing. I'm pleased that they're taking some of the existing vegetation and replanting it across the front of this site, maybe even across the front of the site next door, but really using as much of that vegetation as we can and keeping as much as vegetation as we can across the front of the site. And understanding.
Would you be looking for a more detailed landscape plan? I don't know that I call this a landscape plan, but
What I'd like
Is it-
to see, I think, so my second point to that was, I think it might be productive to continue this conversation, potentially at a subcommittee level, with the information of having kind of the plan, where the berm is now, looking at that, looking at the new plan that they've presented here, and really kind of drawing those lines out as to what the corner near the interchange, that's staying, what's going to be new, what's going to be moved. Because I think there's, I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of desire to kind of work through that a little bit more if we're going to move toward approval of the project. So I would recommend that we potentially think about a subcommittee to have later this month.
okay, but I would want to give them a list of what we'd be looking for them to bring to that subcommittee. I don't want to meet to decide what to bring, if we can tell them what to bring, so we can.
I think we need to have information on the plan as to just the discussion we had at the last meeting, where instead of taking the measuring, the scale rule out, just have the line on the plan. Where is it today? Where is it in the proposed plan? And kind
You're
of work
referring
through that a
specifically
little
to
bit.
landscaping now, in the
The
front, along the front.
landscaping in the
Okay.
front. Because I just feel like the discussion isn't easy because we don't have what's in front of us to make it easy. And, between the board and the applicant we have to figure out what the needs are. I mean, they want visibility to the site. I don't think you guys want to preclude visibility to the site, but you also want to keep as much as you can.
Well, that building and its name is up 22, 24 feet.
Right, but to understand all those dynamics, I think is just difficult to do kind of a working session in this format. The other piece that I asked the applicant to do is give us a little bit better of a breakdown between the two sites, and especially for this use, in terms of, obviously, employees and visitors, but also kind of how service, sales, storage, and inventory, how does that dynamic work between the two sites? What are we looking at for?
Particularly for parking
For parking
numbers.
space allocation, and how do the sites work together, and how, just as Member Perna mentioned, how does it work independently? What do we need to think about? So, we'll get that information in shortly. What was the last thing? The last, I guess, just to the car carrier, that I would agree that we should, I was pleased to see that they could make the maneuver. I mean, if it's not I don't see that it would be a big deal. The drive would be a little wider, but why not build it now to make sure that we can accommodate it in the future? So those are my suggestions, and I think we need a little bit more of a working session with the landscaping out front.
Okay. We're going
Yeah,
to go
no.
there. Let's start with you and work out.
Okay, no, I was just wondering what you project the volume of sales. I'm thinking of the amount of traffic that would be coming in and out and so forth. Based on what you're doing now as a part of another dealership, really, when you get the new dealership up and running.
I can't speak on sales projections, Paul, but again, the intention here is to not create a third dealership, but to take what today are Porsche and Audi in one building, move Porsche to a new building where they can breathe better and, be able to service their clients and maintain an individual identity. And, I think there are 6 service bays now for Porsche, and that goes to 10. So, and again, that is really being done to allow for, service to be able to be spread out more so that folks aren't having to, wait a week to have their vehicle serviced. So there's just more breathing room for that. But we did submit a traffic report that indicates
We have a
that.
traffic report? We have a traffic report?
I'm sorry. Do I have it physically, I'm not sure. Is it a?
No, he
Yeah, no,
mentioned
we-
we submitted a traffic
Oh,
report.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
yes, we have one. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Okay.
I physically have it.
And it's, I mean, it's, we're, and based on some pretty conservative assumptions, it's a de minimis increase in traffic. I think, Rick, am I correct that the increase to the intersection's about 0.2%?
And that's based upon some type of ITE standard assumptions or what? Because I guess the proposal is, you know, if you're going to build a new building, you're certainly going to have more volume to support that building than what you currently got now at the combined. And 0.2% increase can't justify building that building.
Yeah, I'm talking, that was the figure in terms of increase in traffic at the intersection, the signalized intersection.
Oh, you're talking background growth?
No, just what our additional traffic, if any, would generate for more traffic at the signalized intersection, but I can have Rick.
So if you're only,
The Mall Road.
if you're only increasing traffic by that amount, doesn't make sense to me. Okay. Any further questions, Paul?
No, well, you made a good point about the headlights coming out onto the street. And so you're almost going to have to, titrate, because we want the evergreens and so forth in front, but they don't want it so that you're not going to be able to see it. It's a car dealership and so forth, so.
Well, the cars in front are customer cars, not displays.
Right, and the building is much, much higher.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be difficult for people to see that it's a Porsche dealership.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's good enough for now.
Barbara?
I haven't had a chance to look any of these things over, so I'm not really prepared for questions. I'm assuming that the fire department will be taking a look at the turns and will get back to us to make sure it all works.
Yeah, we initially had a turning template for the fire truck. It was, the revision for the, excuse me, for the fire here was in the new configuration, but we didn't have the car carrier.
And then just a question for staff. Am I correct in understanding that the traffic report, which I'll have to look at as well, that the traffic report indicates a de minimis increase in traffic? Is that correct?
That's what it reports, and that's why one of the questions that we had of just understanding the dynamics of how the
I don't
site's
really understand that, because I don't understand why any business would invest the kind of money that is being invested in this proposal if they did not anticipate an increase in business. It just logically doesn't make sense to me. So I'm having a little trouble wrapping my mind around why anyone would invest that much money if the business is not expected to increase.
We may need a peer review of that to confirm the assumptions.
Well, we're certainly reviewing it right now and looking at that. I mean, with every traffic report that's submitted, it's taking a look at the assumption standard, standard traffic engineering review versus what's on the ground and how the sites are working, the kind of, all of that analysis is still ongoing, so.
Wouldn't we really have to do a traffic report looking at this as a separate business? It is a separate business on a separate piece of property. Shouldn't the traffic report just look at this business and the traffic that it will generate?
I think, excuse me, one of the questions I would have is moving in this direction of how the sites work independently. I think the answer is yes, but you are at the same time reducing impact on the site next door. So I think both ways of looking at it, I think, are important.
If you'd like, I mean,
Okay.
Rick can give a very brief executive summary. We did look at it the way you're suggesting that it be looked at, so.
And that's in the traffic report?
I'd rather have staff look
Okay,
at that
It is
well,
report.
then
in the
we'll look at the
traffic
traffic. I did not understand that. So if that's what the traffic report is showing, then we just need to look at the traffic report. I haven't had a chance to do that. So in other words, I really don't have enough information to ask questions tonight, so I will defer.
If we do decide to meet in subcommittee, traffic is a topic that I find is a lot easier in kind of a subcommittee level, just, I mean, we certainly could talk about it here as well, but if we do schedule a subcommittee meeting, we could add that to the list of things to talk about.
Thank you.
Joe?
So as I was saying about it, my thoughts on it, I don't think they, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think these types of businesses generate a real lot of traffic, but I'd say you probably generate more in the repair end of it than you would in the sales end, and even at that, it's probably not that significant. But my concern is the type of traffic that it generates, because I live, as you know, I live on the other side of the town common, and I work on one side of the town common, I live on the other side of the town common, so I'm around the town common all the time, and my concern is I'm constantly seeing dealer plates with test-driven cars being driven. I don't know if they have a particular route that they do when they test drive, but they drive them up around where the common is. And I know when these guys are test driving, Porsches, or they're test driving some of these high-end cars, whether they should do it or not, the sales guy is saying, hit the gas and see what it can do, and I want to show you what it can do. And they're driving, I see them on the town common, which should be very slow traffic because there's pedestrians all over the place, and they're hitting the gas on the town common, and that really irritates me, and I've seen it multiple times, so I have to believe that it's a route that they're taking, when they really should just take them up on the highway and let them do what they want to do on the highway.
Route, yeah, because then they turn it around, you go back on the highway, and you come back in. That's the
Right.
route that they take through the town common.
So it's just not a,
I'm trying to think, if you go up Center Street or come down, you come up,
so they probably go
many
3A
up to
onto
93, come up and around and come back down.
Bedford Street to Center Street, and then jump onto Wynn Street, and then probably do that circle.
Well, you remember we had a problem because they were taking them through the neighborhoods.
Right.
Up off the Mall Road.
Right.
And we got them, I guess, to cut that.
But, I mean, there's a fair amount of foot traffic around the common and that whole area over there, whether it be, around the post office, the town hall, which will be now a new retail area is gonna be over there and whatnot, so.
And all the people coming to look at the sculpture park, yeah.
Right.
We don't want to hit those.
No, I mean, it's just not, I mean, we had complaints, I know, in the past down in South Bedford Street that they've said that was another route that they were using for test driving cars, but I'm feeling like maybe could be internally addressed as one of those issues, maybe a different route that they take,
Anything else, Joe?
No, I'm good.
Barbara? Yeah, Carol?
I'm Carol. That's Barbara.
Yes. Yeah, but she read the report later, so it confused me.
Oh, yes.
I'm an old guy, I get confused easily.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That she read the report. Anyway. Have you gone before Concom yet? Conservation?
We haven't. We're actually going to be filing with them within a matter of days. So, again, we don't anticipate any hang-ups there. Just so you know, the wetland resource area is actually on the other side of the off-ramp. So this is the wetland area here. So we actually, I think, just a portion of our site is within kind of the limits of their review.
Right,
So-
about a sliver, about 5 feet wide of the parking lot falls within 100 feet, so not very much.
Okay.
But I think we should have a better handle on that between now and the time of the next meeting, in terms of, yeah.
And I know that there's only a small portion of 62, but is it only going to be luxury vehicles on the two properties? No pre-owned other cars or?
Hondas, like
They have pre-owned.
Yeah, it's, we're limited to one brand at each, and then actually, the existing special permit for the 62 Cambridge Street property limits it to luxury brand.
Okay.
And what about 64?
We would anticipate that you might want to consider that here as well. So,
Yes,
yeah.
please. I'd like that added to
Yeah.
that it remains only luxury and
That's
one
that's
brand.
clearly the intent. I think it would be hard to have a building of that type of look and design be anything but Porsche, because it's
I mean-
built for their specs.
I don't have a problem with, like, if the car carriers for Kia or Honda can't get into their buildings and they have to offload here, that you have 8 or 10 cars on this property for a couple of days, or to offload them and then drive them over. But I don't want more than just the,
Understood.
One car carrier with
yeah.
you.
And I had another question, and I don't remember where I wrote it, so it'll come to me, I'll ask again later.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, again, quickly reading the memo that popped in. Second page, second sentence talks about, as presented at the last hearing, the proposed employee parking in front of the 64 Cambridge Street. Is that currently employee parking or proposed employee parking on 64?
What are you referring to, Bill?
Second sentence on the memo.
Your October 30th letter.
30,
Okay.
as presented, it starts first sentence and second page, as presented in last hearing, the proposed employee parking along in front of 64.
Oh, you know what, that actually should, that's customer, I'm sorry. That-
Okay.
Yeah. That's, this is customer parking, not a.
Okay, so, and just on the rendering, the space between the two kind of gray segments left and right there, what is that material going to be in the center?
That's an existing display bed.
No, sorry.
On
Do
the
you have
building
your
itself.
laser?
The recessed portion of,
It's-
Glass.
Okay, it's all glass.
Above the entrance is all glass.
Okay.
and
Oh, in the middle there.
skylight that runs the depth of the.
Yeah, so, and I noticed it's all glass down at the bottom too to show the guys. What I'm going to try to see if we can work on in this one versus the Mercedes up the street, and I didn't vote on the Mercedes one, but that one with the light that was shining out across the street.
Oh, that
that's a gazillion
thing that
megawatts
car sits
glow.
in
The
is
poor
horrible.
neighbors across the street that they have to put up with that. But
That's terrible.
although there are
Go
no
blind
residential
every time they
neighbors
drive
across the street from this one, I don't really want to see the same thing where you've got all the glass there and the glass in the middle. Now, it could be kind of from an internally lit, now it becomes externally lit. If there's a way we can write something in on that to make, we don't make that mistake again, because it's just,
Awful.
I would say, yeah, I'd say it's probably not best in class. It probably is for the car dealership, but not for, what I think is, this is a gateway to the town, and we really want to make it the best we can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ernie?
Yes, just a few things. Your entrance, your second entrance is moving even further north. And I know sometimes, having used the exit from the current Porsche Audi, that it's difficult to get over onto the far left-hand lane if you want to go up Mall Road. And I think everybody would agree to that. You might have to wait a while, but and to that point, does your traffic report include any accident reports at that driveway? And if it doesn't, could you obtain them?
We haven't looked at accident reports at this point, we'll do that.
We can look at it.
Okay, thank you. I've been listening to comments from my fellow board members that, why are you building the building if you're not increasing your sales to pay for the building? Could you explain that?
I can do my best to explain it. I think that the desire for this building is basically from an edict from above, from Porsche, that they are doing this at a variety of different locations where Porsche and Audi have been co-located in one building. And I think it's important for them to have a separate identity, separate building, and to provide a customer experience that they feel is emblematic of the brand. So I think that is the primary motivating force behind, having a separate building for them.
So other than that edict from above, you don't think this would have taken place, is what you're saying?
That's my
I mean, I
understanding.
know,
Yeah.
other than the fact it was,
Right. I mean, when the building was first built, I think it was kind of commonplace at that time, because we're not the only ones that had Porsche and Audi in one building. If you- Up in, we gave you the other examples, I forget the names. Nashua, Norwell, and Norwood were all other dealerships where Porsche and Audi were together in one and have since been
they have,
separated into two.
have they separated?
They have, yes.
As you recall, I saw one in Rochester, New York. They just built a wall down the middle of this one building.
Really?
And that's what the dealer told me, that Porsche Audi said was okay.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that one last year, yeah.
I think that's all right. Have you explored if the driveway could be placed in some other place to make it easier to get over to that left-hand lane?
They can't get any further
Is
south.
there any way that,
I
no, you
think-
can't get any further south on 64, can you?
No.
Even on 62, you probably couldn't, okay.
Well, that's why the test drives go up into the center of town, because you
Yeah.
can't go over to the left up Mall Road. You have to go straight, and you go up Cambridge Street, and then you wank down
Right,
Bedford Street down
right.
Center Street.
How does fire equipment get on the site? Does anybody know?
Well, they got a siren, they can stop traffic in all directions.
So they go wrong way on the one-way? Yeah?
They can, it's about the only vehicle that go down a
They
one-way
go
street.
around, down to Wall Street, right? Yeah. That's all I have right now, thank you.
All righty. Trying to see if anything, questions I had that have not yet been addressed. I think all my questions have been addressed by others. The suggestion that this be done, that some of this stuff be explored at a subcommittee, what time frame do you have in mind for that?
Well, I think, I was talking to the applicant team, day before yesterday, about, or actually, no, yesterday. You know, what's there, usually it's file with Concom, file with planning, concurrently we move forward.
If they've not filed with Concom
They
yet, or
haven't
have you?
filed with Concom yet. How many times do we come to the planning board meeting before we get some input from conservation? However, there's definitely things we want to work through. So for instance, if they decide to get the information we're looking for to, whether we talk about things at a meeting or a subcommittee meeting, I would target mid to late November for that meeting to take place.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thinking the next meeting, we've got all that stuff down Wind Street. That could take some time in.
No, Wind Street's not till
Not sure what they're
December.
going to have for us December 6th.
towing?
Wind Street's not till December, but.
Well, we-
December 6th, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, we can play it by ear, but I think depending on when we can get the information turned around and when we can schedule the subcommittee, obviously not Thanksgiving week, and we'll try it
Yeah.
before then, and, you know, next week, the week after, we'll take a look, but.
I might suggest so, I mean, I think you meet in 2 weeks, right? The 15th?
You're right.
And then
Right.
December 6th.
Correct.
If it's possible to have a continuance until the December 6th meeting, that way we at least have a few weeks to have a productive discussion with staff or the subcommittee to answer.
Yeah, that could be a night owl meeting, December 6th.
December 6th.
Okay, well, I'm up for it if you are.
Oh, that doesn't bother us.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, no, I know. I just don't know whether we'd have enough time in 2 weeks. Is that what you're suggesting? Come back
I'm
on the-
suggesting potentially meet as a subcommittee sometime before December 6th.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking
Sometime in
too.
mid to late November, not Thanksgiving week, but
Right.
that's why I was suggesting if we want to set up a subcommittee, we have more flexibility in a meeting time to discuss everything. And we can come back together by December 6th. And at that point, you should have at least filed with Concom.
No, we definitely would have filed, and
I
hopefully
know
we
you
can get some
won't be on their
input.
meeting until the 14th, but
When's the Concom meeting?
Their meeting would be December 13th. They only have one meeting in December, as does your board. But we anticipate having a discussion with conservation staff, you know, prior then. But I think December 6th would work for our schedule, if it works for yours. I think that.
But if you hadn't met with Concom yet until December 13th, would that be a productive meeting on December 6th?
well, they can continue if we decide.
You know, I don't want to meet December 6th just to, to reiterate what we've done and continue if,
I think you can make that decision at the subcommittee level.
okay.
Good idea.
Depending on how that goes, then you can see
So
where we're at.
we continue to a date certain now, but they can always agree to push it to a different date.
It's
And
fine.
in the meantime, if you do appoint a subcommittee, we can try to schedule that meeting.
Well, we'll do the appointment of that at the end of this meeting.
So,
Got it? Okay.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience? I see one person who, no?
Motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of December 6, 2018.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Matters.
Opposed, abstained, 7-0, no.
I should have
Thank
said,
you.
excuse me, that motion should have said matters with an S.
Yes, it did, as I recall.
These matter.
Okay, Noel heard it that way, right.
Thank you for your time.
What is this?
Appreciate it.
This is 90 Middlesex Turnpike, okay.
You done?
This is the Burger Ribs meeting. Okay. Paul's going to take it home and memorize it. You don't use it?
Thank you.
So if I email you, it's a waste of time.
Really,
Okay, call you again, show your number.
All right.
All righty.
What do we got, Jack?
We've got discussion here, U-Haul trucks and Shaw's signs. After this morning, I went, the feather signs are gone from Shaw's, but the wall sign is still up on the,
Did you get my pictures?
it's on the Dunkin' Donuts end of the Shaw's.
That's the only one.
Yeah, the feather
Yeah.
signs are gone.
And then there's a couple of temporary lawn signs in the parking lanes, which I sent you some
Saying
pictures
what?
of.
Liz has been a good hound dog on getting those.
Oh,
What do the lawn signs say?
Same
Wait,
thing.
wait, I shouldn't
Same
have.
thing.
she'll-
Free delivery and flu shots.
She's been good at it.
Yeah.
there's also still a flag sign down at Midas, or a feather sign.
Well, they're out of business, so.
Say what?
Oh, they are?
Midas is out of business?
Midas is going in?
Kidding.
Oh,
So just go get it.
Yeah, so.
I'm just kidding.
We're off camera, right? No, we're on.
No.
Daggett.
No.
This,
And-
by the way, right next door with that
Jack?
little area where we thought there might be a restaurant, there's East Boston Bank.
Yeah, East Boston Savings is in there.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right, that new
All right.
We got
building.
more banks than we do restaurants.
We must have a lot of money in this town, Paul.
if you count all the cash machines, yeah.
There's also a flag down in Bedford Street at the end. It says inspections and so forth.
And then
of
further,
that station.
further down at the last plaza there with the boxing 9-round, there's 3 of them out there too.
We need to get town meeting to approve a zoning sign enforcement
Happen to be there.
officer who's
I
dedicated to
agree.
that.
Did they say, did you guys talk about the one that's shot, all the feather signs at Shaw's?
I wanna-
Yeah.
I have another item I want to just bring up.
Yeah, a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Another big
Okay.
one on the side.
What are we
where you-
discussing
Yeah,
here now?
that's the one we're talking about, Joe.
What are we discussing? Because it's, if folks at home like to hear it, lean into the microphone if you want to discuss it. I guess you don't want to discuss it.
We were discussing what we were discussing. I just
Okay.
asked if we had,
But
if we had.
when you sit way back, Joe, the folks at home can't hear you and they know your words of wisdom.
Well, no, I was asking the
Oh,
members
okay.
if we had talked about the feather signs at the Shaw's. And the
We
one
had-
on the wall.
We hadn't, yeah.
And the
Well,
big one on the wall.
Liz called them and they took it down.
Sign in the
They
wrong
took the
place?
feather signs down.
Not the wall
How about the
sign.
one on the wall?
One on the wall we're still working on.
Still working on that one.
The young lady who manages that store can't get up on a ladder and take it down, but somebody's going to have to.
She did? No what?
That's my understanding. What you told Liz. All right, so the U-Haul, the Shaw's signs, any further discussion on that?
We'll keep working on that one.
Keep working on that one, okay.
I think I have a corporate contact too, I could reach out.
Bill, you raised a question about the U-Haul trucks. Where is this?
This is at the corner of Bedford and Center.
Didn't we have this
Accurate
discussion once
Automotive,
before?
They're back.
Yeah.
They're back.
We met with them like 6 to 8 months ago, remember, in your office?
Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't John Clancy get involved in that?
Yep.
He was there at the meeting.
Yeah.
And they're not allowed?
Well, we,
Nope.
no,
And they're
But-
there
but
again?
I saw them 3 days ago,
so,
but I didn't, they,
We don't have a answer yet. But yes, we did have
They are-
a
you
You
conversation.
don't have an answer from whom?
we're just-
From the
The property
tenant.
owner?
But
He's a tenant, not a property owner is different than the
Okay.
business owner.
And
Business owner is who?
is the building department aware of this renewed infraction?
Probably not at this point, but
You
they-
might do that tomorrow morning,
Sure.
let them know.
Sure.
Okay. Barbara, you said you had an additional one?
I just wanted to bring to the board's attention something that I brought to staff's attention earlier this week about the rotary at the end of Third Ave in front of Wegmans.
Oh, yeah.
Which, as I recall from our meetings with Todd Fremont Smith pretty far back, there was supposed to be something in that rotary that was attractive. At times, people talked about, could it be a fountain? Could it be flowers? Could it be, I don't even care what it is. But it shouldn't be 3 sandwich board signs in a triangle
no.
in the middle of the
Is that what's
island.
there now?
That's what, well, they've been putting sandwich board signs up there a lot. Now they've got 3 of them up there. So I did ask staff to reach out to Nordblum to find out what their plan is. And I know that we had talked with them about putting something there.
I
and-
actually thought, if I can
Sculpture
interrupt,
park.
I thought that they said that they were going to leave it flat so that,
For the fire trucks, that's what I was
Remember?
informed of by
Yeah.
staff. But I still think that they need to do something other than what they're doing.
Oh.
First of all, they can't have sandwich board signs. But I do think that they could put something there that would not be a
Conducive to
hindrance
safety.
to
Did he use response?
fire trucks. They could put flowers there. They could put annuals in there that would look lovely, and
some of those
And-
guys driving the fire trucks won't run over flowers.
they could if there was a fire. So in any case, I've asked staff to
Yes.
reach out
I did.
to Nordblum and have them get back to us with a plan for that rotary because it's unsightly now. Thank you.
I mean, they could even just put a tree in the middle, as long as they work with the fire department to make sure that the
Can get around
fire
it,
truck can
yeah.
get around it. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, a tree is only gonna be a, very small diameter in the middle.
Currently, I think
It
they
shouldn't
put,
be sandwich boards.
it's
that's
to not
for
be
sure.
sandwich
Definitely.
boards. And the
Well,
only thing the sandwich boards, the only good thing about the sandwich boards is it keeps people from driving straight across, which I did see them do sometimes before the sandwich
Right,
boards were
right.
there.
That's good for the tire alignment store.
No, it's very
They do
flat. It's just
have
flat.
those sandwich boards on springs over by Wegmans between the
Oh, yeah.
parking garage and the
Right.
front door.
Right. They have-
Oh,
They don't look as
yeah.
bad as the feather signs, but still, it's inappropriate.
So I know Josh is going to reach out, but I just wanted to let the
I
board know
did, yeah,
that I
reach
had
out to
asked for
Todd, he had
that.
a kind of humorous response, but.
Okay.
A point of information, I don't know if anybody's aware, but Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, has a very good website up on the web. So if you ever have any thing about whether this is a site under blah, 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 or whatever, you can go up, and it's pretty extensive, actually. I've used it before.
It's indexed by address?
It's indexed by address.
Or
It's
town.
massdep.com, I'm pretty sure. I had a property that I had a problem with, and we did 21E, and, all sites that under, what do they call it, RAM plan, I forget what it
Yes.
represents, RAM.
Remediation
action, whatever,
No, remediation action
something, what's the M?
management,
I don't
yeah.
know. They're all listed there anyways, so if there's a site that had a
Tells you whether
problem.
they're capped or
It's good to know.
Yeah,
monitored,
yeah, it's pretty interesting, if you got nothing else.
I have an item of old business that can be very quick. I talked with Josh and Liz and so forth about this. You can't be here because it's regarding CVS. After we did that CVS, it stuck in my head that that was not the best way. And it went around and round and came up with this, that instead of having that two-way, that we make the traffic one-way, starting at the right around the building. That puts the driver on the left by the building, and they can put their thing wherever they want it. If they want to park there, angle park, they can just back out and go around the building. If they want to do plowing, if they want to do deliveries or anything, they can put a door in the back of the building. And it would keep that from being a two-way. The people that work for Michael's, they could go down around the building, park there, and then at night when they get out, they just turn around and go out. And you wouldn't have that one-way going back and forth, which it is going to be now, because if they want the drive-through where it is, and you're going to have the two-way traffic. And I said, it's simple, and we could just do it, ask them if they wanted to consider that, and do it as a minor engineering change.
I thought it was only one way behind the building. Isn't it one
No,
way?
I think they said it's it's two-way.
One way behind the building, two ways in the front of
He's
the
saying
building.
it should be only one way coming.
All the way around? Okay.
Yeah, in other words, they can come around the building, go down the back, it's a big open space, they could park there, do whatever they want to, and when they leave, they just go down and take a left, and there wouldn't be any traffic coming in, because that's where the one-way was. I guess that was done because of Michael's or whatever. But that way, they can put the drive-through wherever they want to, because the cars that are going through are gonna be on the right, because it's one-way. On the left, excuse me, the driver will be, and just go around the building. And,
Around the CVS building.
yeah, around the CVS
The
building.
problem I see with that is if you don't give people access to get behind the Roche Brothers and that, the employees won't be parking back there, which we want them to do.
Jack, I had a similar
Well,
concern.
access.
They can get there if they go around CVS building, go
Yeah,
straight.
Yeah.
yeah,
And-
just go around
and
like they
I just
speaking
think
of
that-
that,
Not that obvious.
Right,
speaking of
that was-
parking
Well,
behind
if you
that
tell them where
building.
to park, you know.
I think we have a hard enough time
But you're
getting it back
right.
there now, so it was,
Yeah, nobody parks back there.
Yeah.
Well, that was my concern. I said, you know, I'll just present it, and if there are stop objections, in other words, say you wouldn't want them to allow it for do this reason, but as I thought of it and discussed it with Josh and Liz, they didn't seem to see any reason why we couldn't at least ask them, would you consider doing it this way? Because it would accommodate you for whatever you want to do as far as your drive-through and everything else.
Didn't we ask them?
The biggest issue with making that one way is the way that, Michael's, Roche Brothers, and Marshall's, their larger truck deliveries, they all go that way into the back, and then actually, many of them don't go all the way around the building, many of them turn and then come back out that way. So just the single, the cars aren't the issue, it's the truck,
Well,
trucks would
now
have to
the
go all the
trucks
way
could
around.
just go around, and what's the difference if they go in that way and pull in? They, you know, at least, I could even turn a truck around in.
Yeah,
the
no,
back.
I'm just mentioning
But
that,
just,
when we
well,
brought it up
Yeah.
initially, that one of,
Ask 'em.
they brought up the
And they
truck.
said to us, they kept saying, well, this is
We
how we
brought it
do it at 242. And that's what they have at 242. You go in, you go around the back, the thing is on the driver's side, and you do your business. But I put that before you.
Yeah.
And wonder if you want to ask them, you know, if that would be a consideration or be helpful as far as they're concerned.
Did we already ask them?
Can't hurt to make the suggestion.
Thank you, that's it.
Any correspondence of importance?
No, the small, well, no, but there will be another small cell meeting.
For
I don't
those who
remember
don't,
the date.
if anyone doesn't know, the applicant for the small cell withdrew their application because they were having heartburn over some of the conditions the selectmen wanted to impose. So they just took the ball and went home.
Okay.
However, I do expect them to
Be back.
come back, and hopefully the town gets working on it quickly to
Right now,
get things in place before they
December.
resubmit, or somebody else submits.
Yeah, Jim Tigas said they're gonna meet sometime in December. There's not a date set yet.
Motion to adjourn?
No.
No?
Want to appoint two subcommittees.
Do you wanna
You already
set up a
volunteered for the
subcommittee?
sculpture subcommittee.
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind being on that one. I like,
well, he asked for staff or a member, he didn't ask for two, but,
Give them two.
I just
so
think he would be happy with
Barbara
more the
and
merrier.
Carol's the alternate.
Okay,
If I want to be on it, I'll be on from rec.
that's it.
Yes.
There you go.
I figured that was.
Public meeting.
Okay,
Oh, therefore-
Okay,
Yeah.
subcommittee for 6264 Cambridge Street.
I'll volunteer.
I'll volunteer too, remember,
it
Good.
depends on when it meets, whether I can
it's a
volunteer
public
or
meeting,
not.
so
It's gonna
more
be a
than three
public
can
meeting,
show
so it
up.
doesn't really matter who
Well, they'll all be
Who else?
publicly posted, every,
Yeah.
they'll.
Be posted, so more than
So-
three, but who wants to be officially on the subcommittee?
Yeah.
It's
Ernie,
public.
me,
Yeah.
it's public, but who wants to be on the subcommittee?
Yeah.
So far, there's only two.
So
It
Ernie,
it
Jack?
depends on what day
The two?
of the week.
Okay,
We'll
Yeah,
accommodate.
whatever.
Yeah, well,
So-
public post and whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, everyone can try to
Yeah.
accommodate as many people.
All right, so far it's a subcommittee of two. All righty.
Just an update on another subcommittee, the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee had its initial meeting.
Oh, you went to that? Good.
I did go to that. I was appointed by this group. And they looked at exactly what their mission statement should be and appointed elected officers. Sherry Alice is the chair and Betsy Hughes is the vice chair. They're still looking for two members, so and the moderator reached out and said if you know anybody that's a town meeting member especially,
But it has to be from particular precincts.
from precinct 1 or 7, right, thank you, Jack. They're looking for people. Okay.
And there are also the business rep.
And the business rep, which is the selectman's purview, so if you know a selectman, nudge him. Thank you.
Okay. Any other staff, anything further?
Motion to adjourn?
All righty.
Are we going to send our congratulations to the Red Sox? Who? I'm just kidding. As a board, the planning board hereby congratulates.
Motion to congratulate.
700.
I made a motion, I haven't heard a second.
Right.
Nobody wants to go home.
Waiting for everybody to stop talking. Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?